For all those that would like to join us, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to say thank you to Westborough TV for live streaming and recording this tonight. And I'll look to see if there's anyone here for open forum. I saw 3 hands, so. Welcome, Mrs. Armani.
Hi, Joanne Aramini, 7 Meadow Road. I'd like to read my statement tonight and then submit it to you so that it could be attached to the meeting minutes, okay?
Sure.
Alrighty. So I appreciate the discussion at last week's meeting regarding BWALT. It's the discussion that was promised and expected at the January 16th meeting with the planning board in attendance. I'm hopeful that things are moving in the right direction, and I look forward to continued BWALT discussions, updates, and follow-up on future agendas. But I do have 3 points to make about that discussion. Number 1, given this project is plagued with a lack of transparency and communication, and the planning board was not in attendance, I would like to know if written communication has been sent to the planning board about the action items of the discussion so that everyone is on the same page. I attended the planning board meeting Tuesday night. There was no mention of any communication from the select board at all. In addition, I'd like you to know that the Director of Planning is actively seeking easements, which is not consistent with your stated action items. Second point, a key issue was not discussed, which I believe must be addressed. A formal complaint was made about the behavior of an ATSC member during the January 13th ATSC meeting. I believe this member was in violation of the town's anti-discrimination and harassment policy. He made a veiled threat against a town official. In addition, this member knowingly continued behavior town officials had asked him to stop. He gave presentations to other towns as a private citizen using Westborough documents and without disclosing committee membership. This is insubordination, again, a violation of town policy. To those watching at home, listen to the recording of this meeting. Go to the town website and go to the ATSC site, and you'll see the recordings there. I'm asking for the member to be immediately removed from the ASTC. This is an issue outside of the upcoming discussion about the role and responsibilities of the ATSC. This person needs to be held accountable for his behavior and for compliance with town policies. Third point, your discussion clearly indicated you all recognized that due process and chain of command were not followed in applying for the 75% design grant for Section 2 of the BWALT. As stated, the 25% design plan hasn't even been finalized as alternate routes are still being studied, so it doesn't even make sense to move forward with more design. Moving forward with the 75% design was more waste of taxpayer money. There was no transparency, and it was done in the dead of night. Therefore, I believe this grant application submission needs to be corrected, but correction was not part of your discussion. The wrong needs to be made right. It's the right and responsible thing to do. I'd like to ask the Select Board to direct Town Manager to rescind the application for the 75% designed Section 2 BWALT grant from Mass Trails. This can easily be accomplished by simply writing a letter to this effect to Mass Trails, signed by the Select Board Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armani. Thank you. Sure, come on up. Welcome.
Hey there. Kevin Barry, 8 Indian Pond Road. I also just going to read a statement. I timed it. It's right around 3 minutes, so it's not going to be lengthy, and just submit a couple documents in support of that. Pretty much what I'm going to talk about is more of an expansion of what Joanne just mentioned in regards to the the submission of this Mass Trails grant. So first, I would like to address several important issues related to this recent disclosure of the Mass Trails grant for $625,000 for the design study of the B-Wall. It's come to our attention that certain aspects of this grant and its associated costs have not been transparently communicated to the relevant boards and committees. First, as far as lack of transparency. So the primary concern is the lack of transparency from the town planning director regarding updates to the select board, planning board, and economic development committee about the submission of this grant, as well as the additional cost of $225,000, which represents a 56% increase over the original projected cost. A little bit about roles and responsibilities. A little reminder, according to the BWALT implementation memo dated August 9th, 2022, and during the presentation and acceptance of that plan, it was explicitly stated that the select board is the governing body and is responsible for overseeing the roles and responsibilities of all committees, boards, and town staff regarding to BWAL. However, the lack of communication on this matter suggests a failure to adhere to these agreed upon roles. Initial cost estimates and capital expenditures. So the estimated cost of this final design study was presented to the Capital Expenditure Planning Committee on November 18th, 2024, as noted as $400,000. This figure was subsequently included in the fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 30 capital improvement plan for fiscal year 26, so it's still there. Presentation of the capital improvement plan. So the capital improvement plan was then presented at the joint select board and planning board meeting, which also had about 100 residents. So this same figure was presented to a number of people. However, there was no mention of the anticipated submission of the Mass Trails grant, which was now $625,000. So timeline and lack of disclosure kind of go a little further is, since that grant was submitted on February 3rd of 2025, it has not been adequately disclosed to the following committees and boards, which rely upon this. So Economic Development Committee, they've had two meetings, February 4th and March 4th, never disclosed. There were other grants that were discussed, but this was never disclosed. At the Select Board meeting, obviously, February 4th, where it was submitted the day before, was never disclosed in any of the conversations, and it was only brought up until we found out about it on February 10th at the ATSC meeting. And then the Planning Board, there's been 3 meetings now, February 4th, February 25th, and March 4th, and it has not been disclosed. During the February 4th Planning Board meeting, which basically was a discussion about BWALT, and it was the Planning Board's follow-up for the joint meeting that took place. However, Jenny Gingras, despite presenting several other grants, failed to mention that Mass Trails grant submission. There was a lengthy discussion about BWALT, but it was never mentioned by the planning director basically the day after that. The grant was only briefly mentioned most recently at the Planning Board meeting this past Tuesday in the context of 210 Turnpike Road special permit hearing, but it was not fully discussed. It was kind of glanced over. So we're deeply concerned about the Mass Trails grant that has not been fully disclosed or presented to the appropriate boards and committees, nor has the increase in cost been explained. Additionally, I requested the Select Board review the financial management of this project, particularly with regard to funds allegedly remaining from previous town funding articles. As detailed in the attached spreadsheet that I'll submit to you regarding the 2019 feasibility study, there appears to be a discrepancy between the information presented at that January 16th meeting and my subsequent financial records request. According to Town Finance Accounting Department, I got all the journal ledger expenses I received. The feasibility study exceeded its budget by $1,156.53. The Planning Department's records that was presented on January 16th and is still up on the town website indicates a remaining balance of $13,954. Numbers are numbers, and I got them from the town. So I appreciate your attention to these concerns and look forward to thorough review and discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Will you give us a copy? Terrific. Thank you.
Patrick, can I just want to be clear that there is no requirement, nor is there a process that we've ever had in place that requires anyone to go to any board or committee to ask for permission to apply for grants. We typically come to the appropriate committees once we receive the grant. I think what the board discussed last time was that they were surprised that they hadn't heard about that application given how close it was to the January 16th. So there wasn't impropriety in terms of not doing what you're supposed to do. I do understand that the board was concerned about that not having been disclosed.
Thank you, Christy. Others here for open forum? Sure.
Paul Deotis, 15 Brady Road. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. To the Westborough Select Board, as a taxpayer, I would like to expect factual and easily accessible information from Westborough boards and committees. The Active Transportation and Safety Committee is 5 members appointed by the Select Board, with duties and responsibilities involving them with all Westborough boards, communities, commissions, police, fire, public works, town planner, town manager, neighboring communities, MBTA, CMRPC, and WRTA, that then report to the Select Board. For the sake of transparency from here on in, I would like to see the ATSC meetings accessible to the Westborough TV for recording. I recently viewed and suggest that the board does also a January 13th, 2025 Northborough Select Board meeting with a 55-minute BWALT presentation by Westborough's Don Byrne, who is a member of the Westborough ATSC. He stated to the Northborough Select Board that he was speaking as a private citizen during his presentation. Westborough BWALT maps, studies, and information were displayed and discussed. I heard statements from the presentations concerning to me, such as trails are not a lot of cost. If you use the Transportation Improvement Fund plus shared use paths, the state pays for construction and maintenance of these trails. Shrewsbury is on the fence with the BWALT trail. The Westborough Otis Street BWALT section is 100% state funded, which I realize in talking it is not. And Westborough has changed zoning laws for an open space to be a paved trail. He boasted that he wrote the Westborough feasibility study, spending 1,000 hours of his personal time for free. After the presentation, the Northborough Select Board voted to mail the Westborough Select Board a letter of interest connecting to the Westborough BWALT Trail at the Route 9 Otis Street intersection with thanks to Don Byrne. I felt many statements and answers were biased and questioned his credibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to submit that into the record, or? Yes. Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Deotis.
If you have a copy.
Sure.
Thank you.
Welcome, Sean. No worries.
That's okay. No, it's fine. Thank you. That's all right. I can share.
Yeah, we'll share. Thank you. All set. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here for open forum? Seeing none, I'll recognize myself. I'd just like to take a moment, as this is likely Member Edinburgh's last meeting. I'd like to recognize his contributions to the town, being a 2-term member of the board, and the valuable skills and knowledge that he's brought to the board over the years. He's been an excellent board member, and I'll say relation in making sure that our town moves forward in a positive direction. So I'd just really like to express my thanks to Mr. Edinburgh, and I would like to just reward him or acknowledge him by gifting him. And you can open it.
That's where it went. That's where it went. Thank you very much.
Yes, we spared no expense on that.
I see that. Thank you. Thank you. Can I? Is it? I will share it with the community this evening. And take it home with
I
me.
didn't know if you'd noticed it was missing.
I did. I
So-
thought, ooh, they really want me gone.
And I'll, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll make some comments during issues and correspondence so the meat of the meeting can move forward expeditiously tonight because we do have a full agenda. But it has been an honor to be able to serve the community. I believe I've done some good things. I believe I've made a few mistakes. There's lots I will miss about being on the select board and involved in the community this way. I will still be involved in the community in other ways. And appreciate the support I've received from the community, the feedback, and the criticism. So, thank you.
I look forward to you continuing being active in the community, Alan. So thank you very much, and look forward to those additional comments later. So thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2, motorcycle safety awareness period proclamation. So I'll just read the proclamation for the town. Proclamation for motorcycle safety awareness period. Whereas the motorcycle is a popular means of transportation for commuting, for touring, and for recreational purposes, and whereas there is an ever-present need for cooperation among drivers of automobiles, trucks, motorcycles, bicycles, and pedestrians who use our streets and highways in order to reduce accidents, injuries, and fatalities, and whereas there are 100 motorcycles owned and operated by our fellow citizen bikers, hundreds of motorcycles owned and operated by our fellow citizen bikers, homeowners and residents of Westborough, and the tens of thousands more visiting and touring our town from neighboring communities and states. And whereas numerous departments and organizations are committed to making our streets and highways safe for all motor vehicle related transportation, urging and reminding drivers to check twice, save a life. Motorcycles are everywhere. And now, therefore, the Select Board of the Town of Westborough, Massachusetts, joins with the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and all agencies and organizations to proclaim March 23rd, 2025 to April 30th, 2025 as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Period in the Town of Westborough, and to wish all who ride an enjoyable and safe riding season. Given this 5th day of March in the year 2025, and all 5 board members, I suspect, will likely sign this, we'll get this around to all of them. So, thank you.
I would move to officially proclaim March, what's the dates again?
March 23rd, 2025.
March 23rd to April 30th, Motorcycle Safety Awareness Period.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 4 being present, 4-0.
Can I ask, I know that we have folks in the back there that had brought this proclamation forward. I'm not sure if they wanted to.
Sure, would
If
you like
you
to
would
come
allow
up?
it to.
Do you want to come up and recognize and tell us? Pass this around to be signed. Welcome. Just introduce yourselves and feel free to.
I'm Rich Began. I live over on Flanders Road,
Welcome.
and this is my wife
Sharon
Sharon.
McCarthy.
So you all have heard what you wrote and our letter, so if you don't mind, I'd like to also address the folks behind me, so they can look at more than the back of my head.
Absolutely.
So I'll try to turn back and forth. But this
Actually, if you could move the
You can move the microphone to the side. We can.
There you go. Yeah, talk
All right.
about it. So we can get it on TV as well. It's
Yes,
on.
you are on TV.
Where's the camera?
Straight back.
You've, I'm sure, have seen signs on bumper stickers and similar, in some people's yards, bigger signs. And it's, as the proclamation says, this is piggybacking on a period but from the state and the governor signs, and she does a short proclamation video. About at this point, 35 other towns in the state, maybe more, give or take, and we get a lot more every year. Like this year, I think we're adding 5 or 10. And it's a nonprofit, and it's really just to increase driver awareness and motorcycle awareness of what drivers do, because some people don't look at where they're going, and we're trying to raise motorcycle niceness and awareness of that, and to get even motorcyclists to pay more attention to the various laws and traffic things. So that's what this is, and that's what the proclamation is, and I gave these folks a letter explaining all that and saying, we had 225 registered motorcycles in town. So that's a good share of the population that we're making safer, hopefully. I don't know, neither of us knows exactly the benefit of this, but if we can avoid 1 or 2 accidents in town, it's worth it, I think. We take training every year to improve our safety and try to encourage other motorcyclists to do the same thing. in conjunction with all that, this is what the proclamation is for, as was read. I don't know, you want to say anything?
If anyone is interested in any of these bumper stickers or the signs you can put on your lawn, check twicesigns.com. We can also have a few of these that we can hand out to you, but we would appreciate your support. Thank you to the board, to all the members for doing this. We appreciate your time and cooperation with other cities and towns in Massachusetts.
Well, thank you very much for bringing it to the attention of the board. I certainly, for one, am very supportive of this, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And I will take a bumper
And I
sticker if there's any available.
saw a lot of heads shaking.
And with a warm day like today, it's a good day to start thinking about motorcycles.
Thank you
With a
very
warm day like today, it's a good day to start thinking about motorcycles being out there.
We were both busy all day today. Otherwise,
I have one.
Westborough motorcycle shop.
Thank you.
yeah, well, there is one in town over by the Jack's gas station by the BP, and he works on just Harley Davidson, which neither of us ride. And we, when a loud one of those go by and we see him, we give him a hard time because we don't like loud motorcycles. And that's part of why we don't go to motorcycle rallies, because everybody at those things does.
Yeah, we don't believe in loud pipes save lives. Your skill saves lives, you know?
Yeah.
That's what you need to, I mean, I can hit my horn, I can hit my brakes faster than I can throttle up
All
as
right.
people do.
So
I don't
let's,
even know how to do it, you know?
We'll move on here. Okay, appreciate that.
But thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll just kick this off, Ian. Actually, no, I'll have you kick this off. Go ahead.
Just want to announce the agenda item.
Yeah. So next item, Police Supervisors Union Collective Bargaining Agreement. I'll have Ian bring us up to speed on this.
Sure. I'm pleased to announce that the town and the Westborough Police Supervisors Association have concluded negotiations for a successor agreement for the period July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2028. The following reflects the highlights of the negotiated terms of the agreement. For wage adjustments, the annual cost of living wage adjustments of 2% in fiscal years 2026 and 2027, and 2.5% in fiscal year 2028. There's also additional market adjustments to specifically reduce the approximately 12% market wage gap at the rank of sergeant. Further, employees who become members of the bargaining unit on or after July 1st, 2025 shall no longer receive longevity wage steps at 15, 20, and 25 years of service. Instead, they shall receive annual longevity stipends beginning at 5 years of service. Paid detail rates will increase to $63 per hour in fiscal year 2026 and to $65 per hour in fiscal year 2027. Details worked during the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. on weekends and holidays shall be paid at a rate of $77 per hour in fiscal year 2026 and increase to $80 per hour in fiscal year 2027. Supervisors shall receive an annual body-worn camera stipend of $1,000. And the agreement also introduces a voluntary wellness plan through which supervisors can earn 40 hours of sabbatical time over a 2-year period through participation in activities focusing on officers' physical and mental well-being and reaching specific wellness goals. One thing I want to highlight, we get asked this, the detail rates go into the contract, but these are detail rates that are paid by contractors or folks that require details. These are not paid by the town, but rather through those organizations that request or are required to have police details.
Thank you, Ian.
Motion?
I don't-
Do I make the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You don't have to? No.
right? We need a motion. Oh, you do?
Do we need
They
to
told
make
me
it
no
or-
motion, so, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Move to approve and execute the memorandum of agreement as presented for a 3-year successor contract between the town of Westborough and the Westborough Police Supervisors Association for the period fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2028.
Second?
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 4 in favor? None opposed, 4 being present. Okay, moving on to the amended outreach case manager job description. Christy or Kim? Kim, welcome.
In your packet, you have a marked up version of the Senior Center's Outreach Case Manager job description. The position is currently vacant, so as we typically do, in reviewing it, we're proposing a few changes. I just want to note, nothing is really intended to be substantive in terms of significantly altering the roles and responsibilities. Some of it's just clarification and better documentation of what that position actually does. So I guess based on what you have in your packet, are there any questions? I will note that it does not change, nothing changes the classification. It stays at the same grade.
Any questions, comments?
No, looks good. It's pretty straightforward and clarifies.
Oh yeah, it
Couple
clarifies
things.
a whole bunch. I guess just one question for you, Kim. Notice that the educational requirement is changed pretty significantly to the Masters of Social Work and LICSW preferred. That's a pretty significant increase. I'm just curious as to what you think the applicant pool will be like in regards to that change. Is that going to be causing
That's what we've had in the position, so we thought it was appropriate to match based on historically the skill set that has.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? Not seeing any, so I'll look for a motion.
I move to amend the outreach case manager position as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? 4 being present, 4 approved. Okay. Moving on to warrant discussion. Christy, did you just want to go through the order that they're here, or?
Does the school, do you need to leave? Okay, all right.
We're moving pretty good.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I guess, yeah, go ahead and in the order.
Okay. So we'll have the swimming pool repairs and pool pack rooftop unit discussion first.
So we have
Great,
Chris
Jen and Chris
and
come up.
Jen, and then we also have one of our architects online.
Okay. Welcome, Chris.
Good evening.
And Jen.
And Jen. Yes.
So Chris Pant from the Department of Public Works and Jen Kirkland from the Rec Department. And then, as Christy mentioned, we have Tom from BHNA online, and he assisted with advice on the pool and the next steps we're taking. So I'm going to talk about the capital improvements that we're proposing, and then Jen's going to talk about some of the benefits that or reasons why these improvements, we're recommending these improvements. So I'll talk scope of work and costs, and then she'll talk some programs and some potential revenue options for us. The pool was broadly assessed way back prior to the purchase of the building, but we stated at that time that it needed a detailed assessment, which was done. And this is the pool as it exists today in that picture, so it's empty. And that allowed for, a good assessment of the condition of the pool. So we have a proposal we have a document that's out for seeking bids right now for work that would cover this scope. So take that pool tank, put a new liner in, do some modifications inside the tank, look at all the pipes and fittings and replace as necessary. There's some deck equipment that needs to be cleaned up and replaced. There's a filtration system that can be updated, and then the air handling unit, which is the RTU, what we've kind of discussed in various forums. So the breakdown of costs, that pool repair is estimated at $406,000. So that's an estimate. We're out for bid right now. We expect the bids back the 17th of March, and that's when we'll know for sure what the costs are. And then the air handling, that's a solid number at $165,000. So that is that's the scope of work for putting that pool back into functioning order for the town. I guess I'll pause there and see if you have any questions on that for myself, Jen, or Tom. Actually,
Alan?
sorry, while you're thinking, I'll throw in one other thing. I think there was a question about saltwater. So we did take a look at saltwater versus just plain chlorine. And it was the consensus of us as a staff, and then in consultation with the municipal building committee, that the chlorine option is likely the best option for the town. Although the bid that we get back will have bids for both options, and we'll have the option at that time to make a different decision. But I think what we're leaning towards, based on just what's the most practical, least complex, best cost likely, is the chlorine option.
Thank you, Chris.
If I could just, before the question, just comment that, as Chris mentioned, so we had the municipal building committee last Thursday morning, spent basically the whole meeting discussing this project, the pool project, a lot of time on the chlorine versus salt. Tom was part of that meeting as well, answered a ton of questions. Hopefully folks were able to either watch it or folks have seen that. The vote was, the recommended vote from the municipal building committee was to recommend the chlorine system. Just high level, factors that were weighed. The biggest one is that the salt system, from experts that are out there, is that it is a little more complicated to understand. The water may be softer for folks, and there's a lot of reasons why folks look at salt versus chlorine. The salt system is still actually generating chlorine, but it's through a different process. But it really requires different skills and sets of maintenance. It's not as widely used as chlorine. We've all known chlorine for a long period of time, and as we looked at, as the municipal building committee discussed it, is really the thought that in moving forward with this, that going with kind of tried and true was kind of a safer option for the town, and also probably the most cost-effective way to do it, short term, but also longer term in terms of the maintenance and all of that. So I'm not giving it justice. We spent over an hour talking about it in municipal building committee. I'm really diving into depths on there. No pun intended with the pool, but just wanted to mention that was the recommendation that came out from municipal building committee.
Thank you, Ian.
Okay, so the comment about salt versus chlorine, that was one of my questions. And just the other thing I want to point out is I had a couple people reach out to me asking why the cost of the pool project went from $400,000 to $570,000. So I just want to reiterate that the air handling component always existed, but it was part of the overall HVAC project for the building. Since it doesn't qualify for the utility rebate, and it's really specific and part of the swimming pool infrastructure, you wouldn't do the pool pack air handling system if you're not doing the pool work and you're not going to open the pool. We simply moved that money was moved from the HVAC project to this project so that the total cost of the pool and the AC that's needed, the air handling for it, was just all one. So that 165 has been there. It just moved from a different capital project to this one because it makes more sense.
Thank you, Alan. Sean?
Nope, nothing yet.
Chris, just a question on the pool repairs. Does that also include the elevation change at the bottom of the pool? I see Jen shaking her head,
Yep.
yes. Okay,
Yep.
it does, okay.
Yeah, I think the other question that came up was, there was some question we talked about, it's a new liner for the pool, but this is not a liner like you have in a, I don't know what, if it's rubber or whatever. It's not what you'll see in a typical membrane for a backyard pool. This is, and you can see it here, it's different, more kind of solid and lasts longer. Tom can talk to it much better than I can, but it was a question that came up of trying to understand. We say it's a new liner. I think the first thing, and I know in my mind, I think others in the municipal building committee was thinking of a pool liner that can tear and rip pretty easily. This is not vastly different industrial or commercial level pool liner that goes in here.
Thank you, Ian. So we'll take these one at a time. We'll just go through, and then we'll
Do you want to hear
We
from
should
Jen?
talk about the other piece to it.
Okay, great.
Be brief, but like I discussed at the budget summit, the pool would be an incredible asset for our department and for the building. Right now, that space in the building is a swimming pool. There's nothing else we can do in there. We can't program that space. So if the pool is not up and running, it is kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of just wasted potential. In the survey that BH+A did when we first bought the building, over 40% of the people that responded said that the pool was very important to them. And almost over 70% of the people that responded said it was at least somewhat important to them. Everyone that comes through the building, we get calls about the pool. People want this. And, the way that we are going to plan to run the pool is to go out to bid for a vendor to run the pool operation. So they would run swim lessons. They would provide lifeguards. That's something I've been hearing a lot. And so I know this board is aware, but I'd like to just say that, yes, if we have a difficult time getting lifeguards at Lake Chauncey. With this vendor model, we would not be responsible for getting lifeguards. This vendor would provide the lifeguards for us. And in return, we would also, with this vendor in there, they would be responsible for, the day-to-day maintenance, the chemicals, things like that. And they would also pay us a lease fee. So that would be a one revenue stream. They would run swim lessons and other programs like water aerobics for seniors and things, but we would also retain the rights to rent the pool out for birthday parties or, other programming that we wanted to do. So there are multiple revenue streams that we can, that would come from this pool. So that is just sort of why I feel like we need the pool in the department and why it would be a good investment. Happy to answer questions on that, but I know I've said that stuff a bunch of times.
You want to just hit on the who's responsible for maintenance?
Yep. So through this vendor model that we're hoping to use, the day-to-day maintenance would be through that vendor, but we own the pool. So if there was something major that happened, we would be responsible for repairing that. But part of, I can show this slide, it's very preliminary estimates that I've come up with. Part of these revenue streams that I was just talking about, we've talked about kind of storing away a portion of that revenue to be set aside for maintenance. So if something were to break, we wouldn't necessarily have to come back to the town and say, hey, we need a new filter. We would hopefully have, some money stored away that we could pay for it ourselves. So in theory, the idea of the pool would be that it would be after this initial investment, we would be self-sustaining. That's our goal, at least.
Questions?
Yep.
Sorry, so looking at what you've put together there, so you're estimating that they would pay $5,000 a month.
Yes, very estimate, yep.
What is the maintenance savings column? I'm trying to figure out how you're getting to the net of $2,500. If we're saving that maintenance, basically they're providing the chemicals, they're providing everything, it really doesn't subtract from our...
No, so I guess what I was saying that like maintenance savings would be like we would take $2,500 every month and for lack of a better, like a savings account, we'd kind of store it away for us, that we would kind of take it out of that money that we were getting in the case of filter or something that needed to be replaced, we would have it.
It would sit in the revolving account and not be expended except for improvements to the pool.
Okay. But still, if I'm looking at this then net, if you're saying we're still receiving $60,000 plus birthday party rental, we may be holding some of it aside in case of an issue, but net really our revenue on this would still be over $60,000 a year.
Yeah, I guess it's a poor chart, but yes, exactly. But with that, yeah.
Jen, can you just speak to the grant that you applied for?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
So all this has been going on, I've applied for two grants really. Well, one is in progress to try to fund the pool. I'll know hopefully by tomorrow whether we've been invited to continue on to the next step of the first grant, and then the other grant, it's quarterly that you can apply. So I'll be coming to you probably at your next meeting, or someone will, with we need a letter of support. So we are actively looking for other ways to fund this.
What are the grants?
Oh, I'm sorry. The T-Mobile Hometown grant is the one that I'm actively working on, and the other one was the Lowe's Hometown or Small Town something.
What are the amounts?
What is it?
What are the amounts?
Oh, I'm sorry. Up to $50,000 for the Lowe's, and the T-Mobile one was also $50,000.
Great. keep us updated.
Yeah.
That's great. Just a question on your slide here, Jen.
Sure.
So the estimated pool birthday party, I'm assuming that $1,350 that you're estimating is an annual revenue cost. That's not, or is that the cost of a single birthday party?
Oh, no, that would be,
Just want to make sure it's clear.
yeah, no. Monthly, I'm thinking we would take in 534, and I think that's low.
Okay. Okay.
It's conservative.
Yeah, yeah.
Very. We don't know. We've never done it, but I think just the amount of questions.
And with the vendor, how do we anticipate working with the vendor, I'm assuming, to structure different activities? Are they
Yep.
setting the fees, or are we setting it, or is it a
So with swim
combination
lessons,
between?
they would set the fees, and aquatic programming, they would set the fees. I've had some preliminary conversations with people. Fees are very reasonable. We would have input. It's not like they would come in and start charging $500 for a swim lesson. And then we would work with them if we wanted to run our own programming, like a dive-in movie night or birthday parties. They would provide the lifeguards, and we would work with them on when, we would schedule that. So it would be a partnership.
And I imagine that would be part of the RFP
Yes.
process of outlining those things that we want.
Exactly.
We also talked about, I know it came up about, kind of a free swim
Yep.
period, similar to what you're doing,
Right.
I believe, with the gym, where
Yep.
you have some paid time
Exactly.
there and paid programs, but we also offer free gym.
Yeah, exactly. So I plan to operate the pool as closely to the court schedule so exactly what Ian said. We have some stuff that you have to pay for, but then there's a lot of options that it's free play. So that would be my hope with the pool as well, where there will be, things you have to pay for, but we are going to try to carve out time to offer free swim time and things, or free even events. Like I said, that dive-in movie, that would be free, something like
Right.
that.
Water aerobics, that type of thing. Okay. Thank you.
I guess just one other question.
Yeah.
Without some investment in this area of the community center, there really is no ability to use.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's sort of what I was saying at the beginning, is that it's a pool. So without water in it, without it up and running, there's nothing else I can do in there. And I don't know, I haven't asked anybody, but I would assume that filling the pool in and changing it into something else would be a lot more than $400,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
And again, this is, I think I know this, but this is a free cash
Yes.
article. So
Yes.
it's not a raise and appropriate.
Correct.
Is the request.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Move on to lead service line mitigation.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
Chris is going to be up again.
So at the budget summit, we presented the article for funding to support the lead service line mitigation topic we've discussed many, many times over the past year. It's an EPA requirement, federal requirement for every water service in the country to inspect their service lines for lead or pipes that could have been associated with lead. We submitted that inventory back in October. Now there's a requirement to, in some cases, confirm some information we've uncovered, and then at some point in the future, replace any lines that are identified as lead or having been associated with lead. So on the screen, just a refresher for everybody, is a picture of what would exist in a typical home. And so here's the street, and here's your water main. You're looking kind of down the pipe. There's a pipe that runs from the water main to a valve that people have in their yards or on a sidewalk in front of your house. That valve controls the water to the house. The line continues to the house where you have another valve and a meter. Then it goes into the house plumbing. And so we're talking about everything between the inside valve all the way to the water main that needs to be inspected and then potentially replaced. So these are a couple pictures. So part of our inventory included a survey that homeowners could participate in, take a picture of their service line that comes in their basement, and we can use that as part of our inventory. And so these are a couple of examples that you can see where this is a water service line coming into a house. Here's your meter and the valve, and we can clearly see that this is plastic and it's similar in this case over here. In some cases, somebody took the survey, which we appreciate, but it's inconclusive as to what type of service line in this picture this homeowner has. So it's going to require us or somebody to go back out to this house at some point and do something, either inside the house or at the valve in the up front of the house, to figure out what that pipe is that's underground, what type of material it is. This is an example where much of our inventory was based off of documents that record when you install a pipe. They're supposed to be recorded on a document. It tells you where the pipe is and what type of material. So many of those documents exist, thankfully, but some of them say galvanized. And so the document we have says galvanized, but if you actually go to the house, this is a galvanized pipe here, existed a long time ago, and at some point in the past, somebody put a plastic pipe through it, which is totally acceptable. And so the pipe material for this house is plastic, which is okay. But the tie card that we have record of might still say galvanized. And so in many cases, we have an inventory that's available online that says a house, and it says the house is galvanized. Well, if it's galvanized, it has to be replaced. But we need to confirm that it truly is galvanized before we obviously would spend money on replacing a galvanized pipe. So that's an example of something that we need to go back and confirm before we decide to start spending money on replacement. This is another way we would determine how or what type of the material it is. So this rod here represents the valve, and here you can see the valve. That's the valve in your front yard that turns the water on and off to your house. And you can see a pipe that's running both directions. So one's running to the main in the street and one's running to your house. So in many, many cases, we're going to have to go back and dig up the pipe and this valve in the yard to determine what the type of material is. So we talked about all those things at the budget summit. Those are some pictures just to give visuals of what we're talking about. Scope of work is really two things that this money is going to help us do. Number one, we have 298 services that are, we don't know for sure what they are, what type of material it is. In some of those cases, it's just one side or the other. So we showed in this picture, there's two lines. In some cases, we don't know which either one of these lines. In some cases, we know one side, but we don't know the other, and vice versa. So in the cases where we don't know the public line, the public line is from this curb stop to the street. This is all underground. So if we don't have a document that says what that pipe is, or some other evidence that says it's not lead, we have to go look at it. And the only way to look at it is to dig up that curb stop and look at it, take a picture. So this money partially would support doing that, and that's step one for us. So that scope service line investigation, we either need to go into somebody's home and figure out something like this, if we can. Otherwise, we're going to their front yard and excavating the front yard around that valve, looking at the pipes and determining the type of material. So that's what the money will initially cover. Once we complete that analysis and our inventory's done, we have everything identified, and now we know how many galvanized or lead we have. Then we go into part two, which is replacement. And if maybe the answer is zero, right? And that's what we want. But we don't know that yet, so we have to figure that out. If it's not zero, then it has to be replaced, and that's where the money comes in again, right? So the money we've asked for is $400,000. We also have some ARPA funding that was been allocated, and so that's our first source of funding, which we'll exhaust before we spend any water enterprise funds. But the intent is to execute this over the course of the next several months, and in order to do that, we have to have some money to do it. And at least from my perspective, it doesn't make sense to kind of just ask for a little and hope that nothing is wrong. We should just ask for it all, or as much as we think we need, and go execute and get the whole thing done, versus investigating, then deciding we have some pipes to replace, and then having to wait till another town meeting to get more money so we can then do the replacement. It's a mandated thing. It's also a health thing because it's lead in your pipe. So I guess from our perspective, it's let's get it done, as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from the board?
A question. So there's a private side to the line and the public side. If you dig up the curb stop and the public side is fine and the private side isn't, that puts the onus on the homeowner to do the replacement. And are there going to be, is there any sort of available assistance for homeowners? Because that could be an expensive trench and replace.
So thank you for pointing that out. I know it was a question that was asked at the budget summit. And the answer is we don't know yet how we're going to approach that. There isn't any guidance. That question has been asked many times by water systems across the country as to is there any specific guidance on who's required? We've been told as a water system to replace the lines, but then the question is, well, who's responsible for a private line and who's liable and all those sorts of things. So those are questions that's a question that needs to be answered. My recommendation on that is let's first figure out if we even need to have that conversation before we start going down that path, because it's going to involve town council and potentially others. So let's get the investigation done and confirm what we have, and maybe it's not a discussion that needs to bear out. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
So yeah, Chris, one thing just in a note, so just so everyone knows, this is intended to be funded out of water retained earnings, correct?
Correct.
So it's basically money that's already there. It's not an additional fee on the water bill.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yep, makes sense.
Chris, yeah, just a question for you. I'm very supportive of this. I think it's hugely important in the community, and I'm glad it's being done. If I remember correctly, the numbers you've shared with us was somewhere in the vicinity of over 200 homes that you didn't have a really clear idea of. But all of the other homes that you did, that people have either been responding to or there's been some assessment of. For example, if a homeowner went down and you showed us some great pictures of what that looks like, and they show a copper pipe there, let's say, right? There's no guarantee that that copper pipe is 100% a copper pipe or copper fittings or non-lead solder all the way out to the curb stop and even all the way out to the gooseneck and to the water main. So is there any way to test water, like the water coming into the home, and seeing if there's a risk of lead in the lines? The reason why, I'll give you a great example. I'll use my own house as an example. My house was built before 1920s. About 30 years ago, I attached to the town sewer, and when that happened, the excavator backhoe hit my water line in the middle of about this time of year. Snow in the yard. Day later, I noticed there's a huge puddle out in my front yard. He had to come back, replace a section of the pipe. I have I don't have any idea if he attached to a galvanized pipe, a lead pipe, or another copper pipe. I don't have any idea. So without digging up everything from the foundation all the way out to the gooseneck or all the way out to the water main, how are we sure that? Because I mean, I get the picture, right? You're looking you're looking down your foundation. You're looking for that valve. Okay, I got copper. I got whatever that is there. But that is just one thing. Somebody could have attached their pipe to an existing system that was put in 80 years ago that was some other flavor of pipe. So I'm just curious, I know that this is a much larger program than just Westborough. What accommodations has that program or guidance has that program given to really, I guess, do that full assessment somehow?
So in terms of guidance, the approach we're taking is an example of the guidance they've given us as an acceptable way to inventory your pipe. Sampling is a potential option, but it's probably not any more reliable than what we're proposing, and it's much more homeowner involved. There's there's certain times of the day when you can do it, and you have to take 2, and it has to be a certain amount, and you have to let the water flow for a while. Like, there's all these variables that make it easy to not get right. And at the end of the day, you're talking about that stretch of line, and we test our water system for lead.
Yeah.
That's that's part of our sampling program. We already do. But there is, like, I'm not convinced that you could confirm that the water we pulled out of the pipe is solely from that pipe.
Right, that's the issue, right? I mean,
And
it travels a long way
that's right.
underground. So, it could, if there was lead that showed up in a report, it could be from somewhere else downstream, so to speak.
So your question is a legitimate one, but without digging up the pipe from end to end,
Yeah.
I don't know that we would get with.
And I'm not suggesting the
absolute
town would be on the
100%
hook for
certainty.
that.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just, as a homeowner, I want people to be able to walk away after we go through this process and how many ever years it takes, and feel confident that their water coming into their house, as I know, I've taken a tour of the water treatment facility, and I have very high confidence in our water treatment plant. But as a homeowner that owns a house that's well over 100 years old, I want to have confidence that that's the case. I don't necessarily want to dig up my yard. Is there any way to, I'm looking at, you've got that water cover at the front of the street in my house. It's actually in the street. You open that up. Is there any way to see that connections to the curb stop at that point, or is it you really have to dig it out to get down there and see it?
You got to
Pretty
dig it
deep,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, it varies. It's below 4 feet because that's below the frost line. But yeah, be nice to at least see 2 or 3 data points on each thing. So
I guess for just public awareness, if we have 5,500 service connections across the town, a large number of those were built or installed after 1986. 1986, lead was not allowed to be used anymore. Right. So if your house was born or built in 1987 or 2020 or whatever, then it's not a concern for you. We're really talking about older houses,
homes.
which I know there are many in Westborough, but to kind of put it in perspective, it's not every single house in Westborough that we'd be concerned about.
yeah. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Appreciate the work on this. Any other questions or comments?
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to school department warrant articles. Welcome, Superintendent.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good.
How are you?
Yourself.
I'm
Now keep us on track here. Like, just tell us which article. To keep us which article we're gonna go through here. as you
okay.
go through
I'm
it.
not sure. I might need Christy's help with that.
All right.
Since I just have the slides about what the projects actually
All
are.
right, terrific. We'll coordinate that.
Sort of, I will get better at this over time. I'm just new to the party.
No?
This and this. Plug in here so you can see what's what.
I think all the articles that she's going to discuss are part of the capital expenditure article, which is Article
12.
K through M.
12. Oh, okay. K through M.
Okay. All right. Let me get.
This is
Okay.
M.
KLM.
M as in Mary.
Okay.
All right. We just have 3 articles to talk about, and the first is the Gibbons gym floor replacement. As you may be aware, the Gibbons gym floor is from the original building, which dates from 1956. It's a typical, wood gym floor, and the way it is managed over time is the surface is sanded down and refinished, and you can do that so many times, and we are getting to the point where we cannot do that anymore for fear of getting to the subfloor. So the warrant article deals with floor replacement. It does require us to remove bleachers and do some other work as part of that process, and the estimated cost is $200,000 for that. Any questions on that one?
It's a long life from 1956, so.
Yeah.
Played and coached many basketball games on that
It
court.
is. It's a good time. I don't know if it has like dead spots or kind of a little creaky.
Oh, there's
but-
a few.
Oh yeah, this should take care of that. I like this one too. It's a nice opportunity to help with a resource that not only the schools use but the whole community uses. So
Just to open up and see if the board has any questions.
Seems straightforward.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, Ian, you want? You
You go ahead. I had a quick question too. But,
I was just curious, is wood reclamation part of this at all, or do they anticipate being able to reclaim any of the wood? I would imagine it's probably a good solid hardwood. So, has there been any?
Yeah, I mean, insofar as it can come up without significant damage, and there's, like I said, I'm not sure how much we're going to get out of that once it gets peeled off the subfloor, but I would hope so, and we can certainly look at opportunities for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
my question is just you said estimated at 200,000. So do we have bids? Do we have bids out, or so how confident are we that 200,000 will cover full cost?
Good question. I'm going to see if.
So we have one quote for $175,000 right now. And
Come on up. Come on up.
We have one quote for $175,000 in the bag, and
Yeah.
And then the other $25,000, that's for the concrete slab for the patching and leveling and sanding and all the other things that we might see once we pull up the wood.
Perfect. Okay. So it is pretty firm quote then.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the article's for 220,000.
Okay.
Yep.
This is the article we've gotten the most questions about, I think, from various folks. It's an article that tackles a lot of plumbing and HVAC issues throughout the school. So it's kind of unusual in that it's not one big project. It's sort of a number of projects that add up to one larger scale. We have reached kind of a critical point in terms of the aging out of some of this equipment. And if you look, primarily we're looking at the high school and at Mill Pond. We do have a maintenance budget. We do try and use that budget to sort of keep abreast of the smaller repairs and items going on. This really came from our operations and maintenance department saying that, we were using that to do smaller jobs. It's going to be insufficient to handle the kind of volume that this is sort of a backlog of some items that haven't been attended to. So it includes boiler, hot water circulator pumps, domestic hot water heating valves, all sorts of things kind of that are going to sort of improve the lifespan of plumbing and the HVAC system at the high school and at Mill Pond, as well as a little bit at Armstrong. So that's the kind of laundry list of what we've got. It's for $70,000, all in.
Fantastic. Thank you. Questions?
I'm hoping you don't have anything too technical because our director of buildings and grounds is out sick today. So.
No worries. I thought you were well on way to your public plumbing certification here.
I am not. I
official.
believe you me. That is one sort of systems thing I'm never going to mess with.
Yeah.
I'm going to hire a pro for that.
These are, I'll just kind of, this is a list of items that you want to fix before they fail.
Yes,
because
indeed.
doing these waiting to do these as an emergency when they fail will be much more expensive. Anyone who's had a hot water tank go and flood their basement understands that your cost at that point is a lot more than the new hot water tank.
Yes.
So.
Oh.
Yep.
Thank you.
Been there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. And third and finally, the Mill Pond School chiller design. This is sort of phase one. This is the design and engineering phase of a two-phase project. And the chiller is showing signs of nearing the end of its usable life. It provides sort of HVAC for the entire Mill Pond School and needs to be removed and replaced. Because of the age of the equipment, it's not as simple like we take the old one out and plug something new in. There's actually some real work that has to be done in terms of compatibility of different components inside the building. Additionally, we will take the opportunity to explore if there are other options that are more fuel efficient. I want to give fair warning that I'm not super optimistic about those options, given that in order to do that work, there would have to be a lot of systems change internally in the building to match the heat pump outside the building. And our kind of our inside experts on this think that the cost differential would be so enormous that it may not be feasible, even with some grant funding and things like that out there that's available at least it's available right now, and that's the other factor. We just don't know. But we'll certainly look into it. If we can find a more efficient unit that saves costs over time, we want to do that. And this kind of robust design engineering process gives us the bandwidth to take care of that. So this is phase 1. Phase 2 will be coming in a future year, hopefully next year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
The dollar value?
What was that? Dollar value $60,000 for phase 1.
And is this unit cover the entire school?
It's good. I think, is there one or is there more than one?
Yeah, sure, okay.
This is where I need Kelly here.
It's one.
I think it is one big unit, and then it hooks up to all the HVAC system internally.
Okay. Okay. Good. Questions? Good. Thank you, Allison.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So moving on to petition warrant articles. Let's bring those up. 20.
18. It's 27.
27 on. So 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31, 32. Okay. So do we have all of Mr. Savoy? You're here?
Yep.
And you're the sponsor of
Article 27.
Article 27? Correct. Would you like to come speak on its behalf?
I don't know if you received this information I sent you earlier this week, but
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wilfred Savoy, am I on here? Wilfred Savoy, 41 Chestnut Street. This citizens petition, non-binding petition, warrant article, the intent is to provide an opportunity for town meeting to voice their opinion on placing limits on the increased annual property taxes and setting that limit at 2.5% plus new taxable property. And of course, this would be to address the cost of living increases that people are burdened by, and also the increases in property taxes that we're all feeling. 1980, Prop 2.5 was passed, which limited property tax increases to 2.5% plus new growth. It really changed the dynamics in the budget process, in that you established how much you had to spend, and then you built your budget up to that amount. Westborough has been able to exceed the 2.5% over many years for looking at 6%, 5%, 6%, and we're looking at possible 8% next year in increases. Now, why has that happened? Westborough taxes have experienced this new growth. New growth would be new construction, home improvements, commercial, industrial equipment, and inventory. And this has allowed Westborough to exceed its normal 2.5% increase in property taxes. And this has been a substantial amount that has built on the limit over the years. Ed Behan wrote a paper on it a couple of years ago, why this occurred. But we are now faced with, or looking at, about a $13 million excess capacity. Now, some people look at this excess capacity as a surplus fund. Well, we know it's not really a surplus fund. It's just that it enables the town to tax beyond the 2.5%. And what this article would do would be to provide an opportunity for town meeting to discuss the potential of limiting limiting increases in property taxes to the 2.5% plus new growth. There's a number of ways in which this could happen. The Board of Selectmen could just simply pass a resolve saying that they are going to limit the increases in property taxes to 2.5% plus new growth, or it could be a ballot question where the townspeople are asked to vote on this. And I've attended enough meetings over the last month where repeatedly town officials have said, we need to hear from the taxpayers. We need to know what is on their mind, what do they want to cut, what do they want to spend. We definitely need reduction in taxes. A ballot question approved by the majority of the board would put that in the hands of the taxpayers to decide. So I'm asking for your support on this article to really demonstrate your commitment to trying to address this issue of really exorbitant increases in our property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy. Any questions for Mr. Savoy? Go ahead.
So effectively what you're looking to do and you're asking us to consider and asking the town to consider is to selectively not follow parts of the law that created Prop 2.5. And let me finish. So Prop 2.5, as you noted, says you can increase property taxes by 2.5% plus the amount due to new growth. And you're comfortable with that, the way you're presenting it. But Prop 2.5 also says that, and went back and did a little bit of research, there's not great amounts, but part of the debate at the time was that that was going to encourage communities to always raise the taxes to the maximum, right? Even if it meant raising to put into stabilization funds, so that property taxes would always go up 2.5% plus new growth. And so the compromise, or the relief valve, was the excess levy capacity component that says towns don't have to max out the levy at 2.5 plus new growth every year. If they don't need that money, they don't raise it, but it becomes excess levy capacity that they can tap in future years. And in Ed Bain's report, he also mentioned that there's no limit or expiration or sunsetting on that, and you can argue that maybe there should have been. So when you look at the charts that we present every year for excess levy capacity, every year where the excess levy capacity increases are actually years where our tax increase, even though on paper to an individual homeowner it's more than 2.5%, because it's 2.5% plus new growth, if the excess levy capacity is going up, it means we did not tax to the full amount allowed by Prop 2.5. And it's in the years where the excess levy capacity goes down where we've tapped into that capacity that if it didn't exist, we would have to go to an operational or a debt exclusion override. And there are some, I forget the last time we did which project was the debt exclusion override. That's currently, I have to go back and look at the debt table.
Many years ago.
Many years ago, but
Yeah.
it was a school project that's going to come off. Mill Pond was a debt exclusion override. So looking at the history from 2016 to 2026, there are 3 years out of 10 where we've tapped excess levy capacity so that the tax increase goes beyond the 2.5 plus the new growth and that safety valve. And so you're comfortable in those years that we would have to go through the process to do either an operational override, which is a permanent override that gets built into the allowable base, or if we're using that excess levy capacity because of specific projects, or we have capital projects in the pipeline, that we do them as debt exclusion, which says you get to go over the Prop 2.5 plus new growth limit only for the duration of that project and the debt service on that project. And so I guess my question is, I'm not sure, I understand what you're getting at, where why, and why. Do you expect the town would, and you would want the town to use debt exclusions more as a way of saying, you know, we had a large capital project, we're going to borrow for it. Let's go that way, when only in the last 10 years, only 3 out of 10 we've had to go beyond the upside limit.
I would say that the overriding factor here is, what does the community want? And I believe that the community can say what they want on an override question. This is the purest way to determine what the community wants. Beyond that, the limits set by Prop 2.5 were 2.5 plus the new growth. As I said, Westborough's in a situation that has this excess capacity, but that excess capacity does not get a community vote. It's determined by the town officials how much of that will be used. And I would feel comfortable, very comfortable, that if we had to exceed the 2.5 plus new growth, that the community would vote on it. And I'm hoping that at town meeting, that we will get some feedback from people on how they feel as well. My quick little survey to get this petition on here, I spoke to 19 people. I got 17 signatures. So, you know, it's a small sample, but that's what they were looking at. There's probably about 185 communities in the state now that have an excess capacity of less than 1%. They're dealing with it. There's another 50 communities that have less than 3% excess capacity. We have over 11% excess capacity. And some people look at that as being in a strong financial position. I wouldn't put it that way. I would put it in the way that it has enabled the town to tax additional property taxes at the detriment of the citizen.
The decision to use excess levy capacity does come to the floor of town meeting because it's reflected in the budget. You know, I understand your concern where it's coming from, and it's a viable concern. I guess my questions really go to the law, and I realize this is advisory, it's non-binding, and so it'll be interesting to get the town's input, but it's sort of the law of unintended consequences. So for example, the level of excess levy capacity is a factor in our bond rating. Loss of bond rating has a generational impact on the cost when we do need to borrow. That affects the taxes. You know, we issue bond anticipation notes. Those can run up to 10 years. Our typical bond issues are 20 years. So a change even for 1 year in a drop even for 1 year in our bond rating has a 30-year impact on the tax levy as that cycles into the debt level. And so I guess what I don't see yet is if this were to pass and we put this limit in, it would require changes to the town's strategic fiscal management policies. And I expect it would lead to, when we look at sources of funds for projects, it would lead to plans where more projects would be considered for the 2.5 override by debt exclusion, so that we don't hit the limit and end up with operational cuts. I don't know. One of the questions that I had about this, and I don't know, and I haven't started researching it yet, is, if the concern is that it's 11%, and that's too much, because, in theory, in 1 year, if we look at where our earlier projections were for excess levy capacity for fiscal 26, it puts it at just under $10 million. So the concern is, in 1 year, yes, in theory, we could use all 10 million of those dollars and raise taxes by that much to the homeowner, which would be
Without an override.
without an override. What I don't know the answer to is what level, given our operating budget, given our debt service, given our other fiscal management policies, what level would hurt the town from a bond rating and issuance standpoint, percentage-wise. I don't have the answers to that. I don't think we know. I also would want to know the what if it passed. How would that change how we manage the budget? Because there instantly comes an incentive never to hit the 2.5 plus growth, and you can do it in a couple of ways. One of which would be taking borrow projects and doing these debt exclusions, which does put it out to the voters. I don't disagree I don't think that's a bad idea per se, but I also understand that there have been periods of time where the modus operandi of the boards and town meeting and town leadership were very much delaying necessary capital projects to stay, and without really the long-term planning, understanding the impact of that. And so I worry that we'd end up in a cycle that says, oh, we need this project, so we don't run against this limit. We're going to do a debt exclusion override. We don't think it's going to pass. We're going to kick the can down the road another year, 2 years, 3 years, and we can run up other costs. So I guess my sense is that I think it'll be interesting to hear the feedback from town on this. And, my question then is, what's the next step? And maybe it's a working group that looks and says, if this is a fundamental shift in strategic fiscal management policy, what does it mean to the town? What does it mean to the town operations? And what might it actually look like, so that we can continue? I think one of the things the town's done very well over the last decade is a better balance of long-term and short-term planning. We see it in our capital improvement plan that went from not even covering every capital project in the town to covering everything, regardless of department and source of funds. At a 5-year, it's been expanded to a 10-year look. There are aspects of that planning process that are tracking things longer than that, because we know things are going to come up. So sort of what happens next, I think it would require some discussion and thought.
I would say a couple things. One, I tried very hard to find out what determines a AAA rating, and I think it's a pretty nebulous thing, number one. Nobody comes out and says black and white, this is what you need in order to be AAA. So that's a fuzzy concept. Number two, when Prop 2.5 was passed in 1980, people cried, the world is coming to an end. One of the things that can be done is look for alternative sources of revenue. Now, when you look at Westborough's situation, there's a number of sources that can be exploited. We do a very conservative estimate on new growth, and we do a very conservative estimate on receipts, local receipts. We have a fairly high local receipt. One of the charts I gave you shows us where we rank right up near the top in terms of local receipts. We make a very conservative estimate on what we expect to get in. I mean, 17% below what it comes in at, 24% below what it comes in at, very conservative. That money that comes in after the fact, where does it end up? it ends up in the undesignated fund balance, or otherwise known as free cash. And that goes to these capital projects that you are talking about. There's no question that changing the policy to a 2.5 plus new growth would change the, let's say, scrutiny that has to take place in projects. There's no question about that, because I think more of the revenue that comes in, local receipts and other things, would go toward reducing the property tax. Now, there is also the issue of split tax, which I've addressed this board on for the last couple of years, and I think that would be another consideration to make up for the potential loss in some of that revenue that we would be talking about. So,
Alan, 1 second. Sorry, I apologize. We're time boxed tonight. So maybe we leave
I have one
this
quick
for
question.
town
Are we
meeting
aware
floor.
of any other community in the Commonwealth that has self-imposed this limit?
We had, not exactly, but our neighbor to the southeast, Hopkinton, had 3 underrides in 2016, 2018, and 2020, reducing the levy limit by $1 million, $1.2 million, and so forth. Now, right now, that particular community has an excess capacity of about $700,000, not 13 million or 10 million or whatever, and they're operating under those conditions.
Okay.
And there is other communities. Upton was another one. There's been 24 underrides in the state, not exactly what we're talking about here, but similar. And 22 have passed since 1993.
Can I just say, I have a slide in my presentation, but I think it's relevant right now. The town of Hopkinton, similar to all of our neighbors, so Grafton, Hopkinton, Natick, and Southborough, like Westborough, have all increased property taxes about 25% over the past 5 years. Shrewsbury, which I know is often brought up on town meeting floor, has actually increased by 42.61%. So we do see underrides, and they're often followed by overrides.
Thank you. Any other questions? We do have a very...
I got wonky in.
That's all right.
AFC's in here at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we got to be out of here by 7 o'clock, so we're gonna move forward here.
Well, I hope.
You have any last comments, Mr. Savoy?
I would hope that the board sees fit to support this article. I think it would send a very strong message to the taxpayers that you're looking at this issue very seriously, and I look forward to town meeting to hear the discussion from the townspeople.
Yeah, Mr. Savoy, I would just say this is definitely a discussion worth having, and thank you for bringing this forward. I look forward to the discussion on town meeting floor.
Good.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
thank you.
Savoy. So, moving on to Article 28, establish a Townie Baby Award.
Yep.
Welcome, Mr. Gilbert.
Hi, thank you so much for taking the time to hear what we have to say. I wanted to.
I'll just say real quick.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to say.
Ted Gilbert, 26 Charles Street.
Yep, I just wanted to share with all the presenters.
Article 28.
Yep, I just want to share with all the presenters that we're in a time pressure here, so try to keep succinct. And
Absolutely.
And I'll ask the board to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that I ask is that you think of this from the point of view of kind of a cultural level, a community level, okay? But I did want to change tonight's jacket and tie, but I'm driving a school bus over in Sutton, so I just didn't have time because I thought it was going to be 6 o'clock, but now it's 4.
You look great. Don't worry.
So thanks so much. Okay, but anyway, living in different communities myself, there is an issue that I frequently encounter. The increase in housing costs and taxes in different communities where people are raised makes it very difficult for them to afford to move back to those communities. Okay? So this is my original idea. And I do call it the Townie Baby Award, or also you could call it the Welcome Home Award. Okay? In November, the American people sent a loud and clear message to all of us that they want America returned to reality, to truth and logic, and to common sense. They've had enough pseudoscience, self-delusion, and sickness. Like the prodigal son who has had enough of the experimentation with depravity and bad ideas, the American people want to come home. I think that the town of Westborough leadership should listen to the majority of Americans who want to come home ideologically and adjust their big picture goals accordingly. But I doubt that a lot of the tax revenue spending that is driven by the globalist UN 2030 trends from the past, such as equity, LGBTQ, grooming, DEI, and the greening of the town, will change significantly. But perhaps we can find one thing that parallels the current national attitude, maybe dominant attitude. Maybe we can find something that benefits all of us. I suggest that we ask the town of voters at the annual town meeting whether or not they will support a non-binding citizens petition that asks the town to show appreciation for the minority of young people who, having been born or raised in the town of Westborough, choose to come back to Westborough to start their families. I suggest that if you were born in Westborough and or have lived here for the majority of the 1st through 12th grades, you come back to Westborough and start a family, that you are awarded a $1,000 award from the town per child once you do so. American life already presents us all with powerful centrifugal forces that move us away from where we were raised. Vast choices regarding careers, career locations, relationship changes, private sector mergers, bankruptcies and office closings, etc. We in Westborough already provide abundant resources to the new Americans in our community, and we welcome everyone to Westborough. But it is the mixing of all the diverse groups in town, like Westborough, that makes us strong, including the locals. I suggest that we offer this one modest but meaningful token of appreciation to those Westboroughians who make the effort to come home and to share their local knowledge and lived truth. As Robert Frost tells us, home is the place where, when you have to go there, they have to take you in. I ask you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Any questions from the board?
Quick question. How is this article different from your citizens petition last year?
So the criteria is that you're either born in Westborough or that you were raised in Westborough. And the idea that I have is that if you were here for the majority of your years, school years, 1st grade through 12, is basically, you're raised in Westborough.
Okay, so last year your article was defeated 10 in favor, 373 opposed.
Yep.
I guess, do you have expectations that this article is in some way going to pass?
I don't have any expectations. I think it's something that is worth talking about. I think it's an issue that I have encountered regularly. I'm sure that we all do throughout America. And, certainly here and in New England, I think there's a value to having people, the position of the town of Westborough be that this is one of our values. That if you make the effort, just let me finish. If you make the effort, not everybody wants to make the effort or can, but if you do and you move back home, we a very modest acknowledgement that you're bringing all that resource of that experience back to the community.
I don't believe that's what your article is actually trying to accomplish.
How can you say that?
I wish you luck. Let's move on.
That's exactly what it's trying to accomplish.
I wish you luck.
Okay. You want to talk more about it?
No, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay.
No. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert.
Okay.
Appreciate coming forward.
Thank you.
Moving on to Article 29, denial of sanctuary city status for Westborough, Massachusetts illegal aliens.
Boyd Conklin, 8 Water Street. So I've got 4 articles here, 29, 30, 31, 32, and they're all about Westborough spending less money. Most of the articles on the warrant here are about spending money. Mine are to try to save money. So as we've seen here, illegal spending, City of Denver, $40 million a year. City of New York, $3.5 billion a year. City of Boston, Wu said yesterday in Washington she doesn't track it. Maura Healey, she wants to raise state income taxes 2 to 3%. I guess maybe it's something like $500 million for half the year is what they've from the fiscal year so far. So maybe $1 billion a year for the state. But anyway, so I'm looking for the for Westborough Town to assist ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, with the deportations of local illegal aliens to follow through by freely offering all of our town resources of Westborough Police Department and Fire and this kind of thing. And let's see, we're looking to keep it short today. You guys can read, obviously. Hopefully, I don't know if you guys are tracking what your funding is, but it seems like the feds are no longer funding this stuff, as you may know or may not know. And Maura Healey's having a very hard time trying to fund it. So maybe some of the 4 hotels that you guys signed up for a couple of years ago, maybe some of that is going to land in our lap because the people are here in our town. So,
Town didn't sign up
anyways,
for anything.
that's we can cut it short on the 29.
Yeah, I just want to echo what our town manager said. The town didn't sign up for anything. Those are businesses that came to town.
Okay,
So just be clear on that.
we've got them in town. Shall we move on to 30 or?
Yep, sure. Keep going.
Okay. So 30, termination of the position of sustainability coordinator from the town of Westborough. So to see if the town supports the non-binding, and once again, 29 was non-binding too. The town will terminate the position of sustainability coordinator from the town of Westborough. So Peter Dunbeck is Sustainable Westborough in 2019 put an article on the warrant for the Westborough to adopt the non-binding Westborough Climate Action Plan. Now we have Sustainable Westborough as a town department, it seems to me, hiring employees. Here's the town website for Sustainable Westborough. So we've got our informatics guy, David
Just to be
Stockman,
clear,
working on
Mr.
that.
Conklin, I'll just share with you that there isn't a sustainable department. There is a planning department, of which there is one employee who is our sustainable coordinator.
Would you know, I've got the 2023 number for 26,000. I imagine that was a partial year. Do you know what that salary is for a full year?
I would have to go back and look at it. I'm
Maybe
sure we
you
can
do,
bring that up if
Christy?
we need to, but continue.
So anyways, so we've got, we're hiring a headcount for sustainability, for zero carbon, for a non-binding resolution. So I don't think we need the headcount. I'd like to give the town, at town meeting, a chance to perhaps get rid of that headcount. And
Sorry,
no questions, we can move to 31.
I was just going to say, I don't have the number. I'm pulling it up right now, but the number that you just said, half that position is funded through a grant. So that's another reason why you would see a smaller number.
Thank you, Christy.
Well, there was no 2022 number, so I imagine they get hired in that year. So I'm not sure if that's the full year salary or not.
Pull it up now.
So you're saying the 2 times that is 52,000 and half of it is grant? That's your stance on that salary?
We'll figure it out.
Keep going. We'll get a number to you.
Okay.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I
You
do.
have it? Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So the total salary for fiscal 26 is 74,119, and 30,000 of it is funded through a grant.
That's what's budgeted, correct?
Yeah,
Right,
for
so-
fiscal '26.
Okay, thank you.
So the net to the town is roughly 44,000. Okay.
So what do we got there? 76,000? 30,000 grant?
Yep. 74.
74.
74K. And what are the odds that grant continues with this new administration? Is it federal grant or state grant? Or
It's
you
a
know,
state grant, and we have the funds already.
for 1 year?
More than a year. I don't have the details of
Okay.
the money,
I
but the
think
money
we're-
exists in our.
I think Maura Healy's going to be running into some financial problems, and so some of this green stuff is going to disappear. Maybe we can. Well, we'll see what they think. Anyways, on to 31.
Sure.
Okay. Place all future Westborough City employees on 401k style investment accounts, aka defined contribution plans. And so it doesn't really save any money this year, but down the road saves immense amounts of money, I would presume. So then we can move on to 33.
Christie,
or
correct me
32.
if I'm wrong, the town employees are part of the state-provided retirement plans, the retirement programs.
Yeah, we're part of the Worcester Regional.
Worcester Regional Retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's provided through that, and it's
No, it's funded.
It's funded through that, correct?
No, we're funding.
Right, we fund
We fund.
through that to those.
And that's
to those folks.
statutory?
Right. Yeah, that is statutory.
Well, there are towns that are moving to this kind of a plan because they're running out of money.
Do you know which towns? I'm on the IRS website, and it says that we're not eligible for 401k plans.
There's one in Florida.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So
In the state of Massachusetts. Do your research, we'll see what you come back with, but I guess the town meeting.
Very
Go ahead,
good.
go to 32.
Very good. Let's go. All annual town meeting articles on the warrant are able to be voted on by the voters of Westborough at the town elections held prior to the annual town meeting. So the idea here is you would be given a ballot if you wanted it with the town meeting articles on it, that you could vote them with the ballot, and we would be able to track whether you took that ballot or whether you just took the ballot for, say, select board or school committee. And then you wouldn't get a device to vote. At the town meeting, you could go to it, but you wouldn't get the device to vote. So it would seem to be pretty easy to do. The idea here is to get more input from the town type of thing. As we've seen before, sometimes, so if we've got like 20,000 people here, maybe, I don't know, 10,000 of them may be registered voters. But if you've got sometimes only 200 people at town meeting on these articles, that's like 2% of the Westborough population deciding on the direction of the town. Sometimes we get 400 people at town meeting, then we're at like, say, 4% deciding. And then sometimes when we get like things like the library revote, where people want to go like, no, I've already voted on this once, I have to vote on it again. It really brings them out the 1,400. So you get 14% of people, then they're voting down all of the spending for this kind of stuff. So I think we would become a lot more fiscally responsible if we did a thing like this.
Thank you, Mr. Conklin. I'll see if there's any questions on.
no,
All right, thank you
I
very
don't see
much,
this
guys.
driving in any way with the state constitution.
Right, and I would just go back to Article 29 for just a moment and just assure the community that our state police, our town police force adheres and swears an oath to the Constitution, to the state Constitution, and to the town charter and bylaws. So I would expect them to be fully compliant with any warrant that is issued by a judge that ICE has to serve. So this article implies that we don't do that today, and that is not the case. So I just want to put that out there. Any other
Well, we're hearing
questions?
a lot of things from places like Massachusetts and California and New York about there's no compliance. in case you hadn't heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're not in California.
Okay, so
Health insurance.
petition, we're good with that.
Yep. Health insurance.
Moving on, item 6, health insurance charges.
Do you want to vote your support or not of these articles?
Or did we want to do those? I guess I suppose we should do that now. Yeah. Okay.
Do
What did we
you
do?
want to come back to it when Shelby arrives?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking along the budget lines at the same time we'd vote on these, but.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay. So health insurance changes?
So some good news. We, as the board is aware, we've been working with the Insurance Advisory Committee. That is representatives from all of the unions, all the school unions, the town unions, as well as a retiree representative, looking at options given that our renewal from Blue Cross Blue Shield, who is our current health insurance carrier, came in at 16.9%. The committee has been fantastic. We have been meeting frequently and have had a lot of information coming at us. The good news is, as of Monday, the committee voted to move forward with changing carriers, moving to Harvard Pilgrim Health Plan with a renewal rate of 8.3% for our HMO, which is our largest, that's the plan with the greatest participation. A couple of minor changes. The current plan deductible is $300 for the individual, $900 for the family. That is going up, $500 for the individual, $1,000 for the family. That was approved. We are also moving our dental from Blue Cross Blue Shield to Harvard Pilgrim. There are some slight increases in those premiums. Those are fully borne by the employee, but there is also a corresponding increase in benefit through that plan. So you did have in your packet some materials that basically show the plan designs under Harvard Pilgrim, with the exception of those increases in the deductibles. If I said copays before, it's deductibles. Everything else stays the same. And one of the other benefits, currently Blue Cross Blue Shield's HMO does not carry a rider. So when you have dependents who go out of state, those subscribers often have to move into the more expensive PPO plan to retain coverage. Harvard Pilgrim offers a rider through its HMO that will cover dependents out of network. So that's a positive for the employees as well as for the town in terms of reducing the number who have to move to that higher plan.
I guess that's a question. That means, when you say that, that means like if a family has a student going to college out of
Yes.
state,
Correct.
if they're not covered, they have to pick up
Correct.
separate
Currently
insurance or
under
move to a different.
exactly.
Thank you.
So currently, Blue Cross Blue Shield, many of those families have to move to the higher PPO. This would allow them to stay on the HMO because dependents are covered through age 26.
Thank you.
Kim, what was that percentage again? Blue Cross Blue Shield was a 16.9.
Yes.
This was what again?
8.3.
8.3, fantastic. Great work by the team.
So I think what we're looking for today, based on the Insurance Advisory Committee's vote Monday afternoon, we're looking for the board to authorize moving forward with the change in those deductibles, as well as moving the dental along with this, and to authorize the town to enter into MOAs, Memorandum of Agreement, with the individual unions. We are also looking to include, those MOAs typically include language that reaffirming continuation of provisions in the prior agreements. And just to remind the board, the town currently contributes for individuals who participate in the high deductible health plan. The town contributes $1,000 to the HSA for someone on an individual plan, and $2,000 to the HSA for a family plan. That is currently in place through June of 2026, and we would just memorialize that that continues.
Perfect.
So, sorry, that was fast. Any questions?
No, it's great news.
Great news.
And again,
Thanks
the
to the
unions
unions.
have been fantastic. This has been coming at them fast and furious, and they've been great about meeting. They've been supportive. they understand both the impact to their membership as well as to the impact on the budget.
Thank you again, Kim, for working on this. And, I know that it was a message that you heard at the various different budget meetings. So thank you very much for working on this.
Yeah, I guess I just want to be clear that we do meet with the IAC every year. And when we're facing these types of increases, we pursue these types of changes always. So, while I understand that we're sort of permitted to use this reduction in our sort of overall reduction of the 1%, I just want to assure the public that this work is done routinely and it is not simply a result of the request.
So any other questions or
Motion?
Take a motion?
I move to approve the proposed health insurance changes as presented and authorize the town manager to execute the memorandum of agreement with each bargaining unit.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Oh, that's great.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Patrick, you have to recuse, Patrick.
Oh, I don't have to recuse on this one?
Yeah.
Even though it's for the whole,
It's available to you.
okay. Sorry, take that back. Ian, can you please conduct the?
Yes. All those in favor?
Officially, I'm going to recuse myself as a result of my wife being part of the clerical union. Sorry.
Okay, take that vote again. All those in favor? That's 3-0, 1 recusal. That passes.
Oh, it barely passed.
Back to you, Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
for the reminder.
Sorry.
Okay, just a quick check. Has anybody heard from Shelby? I just want to get a time check here.
Oh,
She's in the Zoom waiting room.
We'll go make sure that she gets let in. Oh.
Just in regards to time, Christy, why don't we get started with item number
Sure.
Item 7, non-union compensation study implementation.
Yep. So as the board's aware, in October, town meeting approved the funding of a compensation study for non-union employees. The reason that this was specific to non-union employees is that we routinely do market studies, market analysis when we negotiate with unions, and those agreements come up every 3 years. We have about 40 non-union employees, and we have not done a compensation study for those positions since 2018. As the board has heard us and the public has heard us talk a lot about our any sort of need to recruit, offer additional incentives, it was really important that we came to market with our non-union positions as well. You heard at your last meeting from our consultant regarding the response rate that we received in terms of folks providing other communities providing information about how they compensate and what level they compensate those similar situated positions. She also talked about internal equity and other ways that she had obtained data in order to make a proposed recommendation. We did receive that final report last night, and so that was forwarded along to you. At this point, we are asking the board to make sort of several approvals or adoptions. One is to adopt the salary schedule as was presented by our consultant. As a reminder, she presented one salary schedule with 4.5% steps, 4.5% adjustments between each step. And we used to have two separate salary schedules. Everyone's now on one. So adoption of that salary schedule. The second is a 2% COLA. As the board is aware, in our current budget, we have a 2.5% COLA for those positions. Given how we've settled with unions who have also received market adjustments, we're proposing a 2% plus the market adjustment. And so adoption of the 2% COLA. We do want to grandfather or hold harmless a couple positions that were identified as not requiring a market adjustment and would actually end up being placed on the schedule at a slightly lower amount, so they would not receive the full 2%. So we're asking that those 3 positions be grandfathered and held outside of the salary schedule in order to receive the full COLA. And then we're asking that we be
permitted to adjust the budgets to reflect this COLA and market adjustment as proposed. We are not at this time asking you to approve the classification plan that's been proposed. The reason for that is we have just been able to forward that along to all of our non-union employees, and out of respect for those employees, we want to be able to answer questions and engage in dialogue before we ask for the final classification plan to be approved, understanding that if there were any changes made, we would need to make those adjustments within existing budgets.
Sorry, I couldn't write down fast enough what all the motions that you're looking for. So I got three. Adopt salary schedule as presented, accept the 2% COLA approval, hold harmless 3 positions so that they're enabled to accept the full COLA.
So they would sit off of the salary schedule in order to get the full 2% COLA.
Yep. Held out of the salary schedule for full COLA. What was the last one that you had?
To adjust the budgets to reflect the COLA plus the market adjustment that's been proposed. And so the total cost of this, or the total increase across all departments is approximately $70,000. When we did this similar study in 2018, it was just under $40,000. And so folks would move into these steps, and then they would sit at these steps until their anniversary in fiscal 27, which is also how we implemented it in back in 2018.
Good.
So 70,000 is the impact of this new classification schedule.
Yes. The additional impact.
What's that? The additional impact, but does not take into account the reduction in current budgets from 2.5 down to 2, or does it?
It does, right?
Yeah, the 70,000 represents the additional impact over what's already
So
been.
it is the net. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 70,000 more. That includes the 0.5% cut and then the implementation of the wage.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, so we need to view some motions here.
Does Shelby have any questions?
Shelby, oh yes, Shelby, are you? We're on item.
No, can you?
Can you hear us? We're on item.
No question.
7.
Yeah, no, I'm following. No question. Still trying to get my technology fully working here.
Okay, good. Okay. So we'll look for motions to support those four items. Does anybody want to give it a try?
Can I say so moved?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote them all down, but
I think we reiterated them. So yeah, I think it's
So moved?
as presented.
As presented.
Okay. Any further
You know,
questions?
you guys, I do have a question. Can you, because I can't see the actual document to reference, can you just speak to how this increase, a little more detail as to Ian's question, how this is aligned with the FY26 budget?
It would increase the total budget by approximately $70,000.
Yep, $70,703.
So the budget.
Estimated.
The original budget included a 2.5% COLA for all these positions. That's been dropped to 2 plus what the market adjustment is. That differential.
It's just over
is
$70,000.
$70,000.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so I heard a motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just personally for me, I mean, we're going to be talking about this next in terms of looking to cut whatever, but this was put on in 2018. This is employees that don't go through a process like we do on an annual basis with unions. I think it's important for us for this smaller number of employees, but important employees, as all employees are in town, to basically do this study for them. I hope that we can do it more often because it's been a long time and a lot of changes. I think this is to me, it's the right thing to do. We know we have a problem hiring, but just as importantly, retention is important for us, and I'm concerned if we don't do this, then we have concerns over retaining. A lot of these are department heads and key positions in town, so I am supportive of this.
Thank you, Ian. Any further discussion? Seeing none.
Yeah, just one.
Go ahead, Shelby.
Sorry, just to add, and I may have cut out there, but I also support this even in the face of the budget discussions we've been having. This is, for these employees, the one opportunity for them to, they don't get the opportunity to negotiate an increase through, traditional union negotiations, and they're not under contract. So I do think it's absolutely the right thing to do, and hopefully the town will support that long term.
Thank you, Shelby. Again, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote as we're hybrid. So Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Alan?
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Keogh, yes.
And Welch, yes. 5-0, 5 being present.
Thank you.
Next item is FY26 proposed budget update, proposed reductions, and consideration of votes to support.
So the presentation that I'm going to show you is sort of has two sections, and the first section of the presentation looks at budget adjustments that have taken place exclusive of the budget adjustments that have taken place exclusive of the requested reductions. The only reduction that we'll recognize in the first part of this presentation is the insurance reduction. This slide I just wanted to put up here because this is something that I had mentioned previously, but I think we do hear a lot about our comparison to our neighbors. And so we did do some analysis to understand our growth in our tax bill over the past 5 years as we compare to our neighbors. And so this slide just shows that we are right on average with neighbors, having Northborough lower and then Shrewsbury significantly higher.
Shrewsbury, includes, because they've had a number of overrides.
They have had overrides. Grafton has also had overrides. So these are the budget adjustments, and again, these are things that are exclusive of the reductions that are on the table. A lot of them, as you can see, are the result of either position turnover or the settlement of contracts, either individual contracts or union contracts. And so you can see here our biggest adjustment is our debt budget. So we talked at the budget summit about the fact that we go out to borrow in the month of March. And so on Tuesday, we did receive our bond issuance, and we were able to reduce the budget by over $1 million. One of the other things that we just wanted to bring up, because this is also changes the way that we look at the budget, is the landfill budget. Because the select board was supportive of the Waste Management Enterprise Fund, we just wanted to show that it will show up differently in on the budget, and it will show up. We will have the landfill budget line, which will show up as a 0, and then everything has been moved to the Waste Management Enterprise Fund. Certainly, this still needs to be approved at town meeting. It's the article right before the budget. Essentially, what we're trying to show here is that we have moved the cost of waste management that's specific to town buildings into individual budgets, because that's a raise and appropriate. That's similar to what we've always done with those things. So the Public Works Department has taken on the expense of waste removal in all the town buildings into their budget. It doesn't reflect an increase to the budget because it was previously in the landfill budget. And then the Board of Health has taken on the sharps disposal into their budget. Everything else that's been a cost in the landfill budget is related to our use of the transfer station, inclusive of the pay-as-you-throw program. And so all of those costs are moved into the enterprise fund, which are offset by the revenue that we receive for those programs. So specifically the transfer station permits, as well as the bag revenue. And so I have heard that there's a concern because the last enterprise fund that we created actually created an additional charge on folks' bills. That is not what the intention of this enterprise fund is. It just, it's really an accounting function that allows the revenue directly raised from the transfer station permits and also the bags to go directly against the cost of those programs and the hauling contract. So if we just look at the budget adjustments that I put on the screen before, you'll see that the town budgets now have changed, actually increasing over what was, so the gray line at the top, of each of the rows is what you've seen previously, and the yellow is what you're seeing now. So the town budgets have increased. That really, again, is a result of a lot of the contracts being settled. The school budget, we actually, though the school committee has voted to reduce that budget for the purpose of this discussion, we've actually left it whole in this portion of the presentation. And then the fixed costs does reflect that decrease in the debt budget, as well as the removal of the landfill budget. And then you'll see that we did receive a lower assessment from Assabet Valley. When looking just at the town side, you'll see the increases here. So the expenses increase really reflects some of those increases that I just mentioned, which is moving the waste management costs of just waste management in our town facilities into the DPW budget, and then also the Sharps program into the Board of Health, and then the salary and wages. And then this is just reflecting fixed costs more specifically. And so in addition to the items that I've already mentioned, we've also added Westborough TV as a fixed cost. As the board is aware, as the public is aware, Westborough TV is working with us on a memorandum of understanding. And they have requested this additional $151,000, which the board did vote to approve. And that, even though we're showing it here as a budget item, it's a separate article on the warrant. This is just reflects.
Can you just go back to that?
Yep.
So just to orient it. So, like if I look at debt and then insurance. So debt. Just can you explain how it went from? Okay, so we're decreasing our debt.
That's right.
Versus the increase, so now it's negative 57.
That's right.
But insurance.
So the increase was 570,000, and we decreased it by over $1 million. So now it's less than it was in fiscal 25.
Okay.
And then
so
the insurance total decrease is about 225,000, based on the changes that Kim presented.
Right. So it went from 287 to 260. Okay.
Yeah.
Less of an increase.
And the 8.3% that Kim mentioned earlier is a portion of that 12.07. Is that correct? Like the rest of it is
right, because it's we're still increasing the health insurance line by 8.4%, plus there's other line items in the insurance budget.
Okay.
And sorry, I apologize not following, but the landfill, I understand the enterprise fund, so it's showing is coming out of fixed costs, but where?
So it's coming out of, it's going into the enterprise fund, so it's shown separately. This number isn't exactly what was in landfill because there is still a raise and appropriate.
So that's my page. So we still have that raise and appropriate.
There still is a raise and appropriate. It'll show up it'll still show up in the enterprise fund, but it'll be similar to what we discussed with the Westborough TV enterprise fund. It's offset. There's a portion of it offset by taxes because we don't raise enough money to fully cover the landfill budget or the waste management enterprise fund. This just shows the history of health insurance. As I mentioned, we do this work very often, and so this includes where we've landed with FY26. And then these are still some of the outstanding budget items. Actually, the patrol union and the clerical union contracts are still outstanding, so I'll update that. State aid obviously is not final, and we have not yet locked in on the electricity budget. When we look at revenues, this shows exactly what you've seen before, which is just how often we look at revenues. So we, of course, looked at them again. We always do right before town meeting. The state aid has increased just under $200,000 based on the process that the legislature goes through. And then we've actually increased our motor vehicle excise estimate, and that's based on the actual excise tax bills that went out earlier this month. And then there's just a note at the bottom here that we previously had included in our local receipts estimates for what we would get for the transfer station permits and the bags. That has moved to the enterprise fund, but there's no net impact because also the costs of the landfill budget has also moved to the enterprise fund. And then I just wanted to make the comment that when we were meeting with the department heads throughout this process of looking at budgets and identifying cuts, they are identifying opportunities for additional revenue. So the authorities that approve the revenue approve the fees, depending on which fees we're bringing forward, will see us over the next couple of months asking for changes to fee schedules in order to create more revenue. So the current projections, based on all of those adjustments, reduces the estimated average single family impact from the 969, which we presented in December and January, to $737 to the average single family. And as we look at excess levy capacity, again, as Alan mentioned, we don't typically use our excess levy capacity, which means that we are not taxing above that 2.5 plus new growth, except in this fiscal year. We did use a little over $1 million of excess levy capacity, and we're certainly proposing to use more going into fiscal 26. But that has, we were expected to use less of it based on the adjustments. So in December, January, we were anticipating using about $4 million. And now we're anticipating using about 2 million, a little less than, about 2 million. And looking at free cash and retained earnings, this is something that I had raised, but I wanted to raise it publicly, that we did have an error in the certification of our free cash and retained earnings in October. And that was due to some of the work that had been done with all of the transition in the finance department. And so we did follow up with DOR, and we actually have a current certification that came out last month, where our free cash is actually higher than we had anticipated, and enterprise funds are less than we had stated previously in October. But there is no impact in that anything that's been approved is within the current certifications. This is just listing all of the free cash articles. And so we're proposing to use $3.6 million of free cash in the upcoming town meeting. And then just as a reminder, articles that have been removed.
That's okay.
Oh,
I'll wait till the end. Pardon me.
All right, good.
Just as a reminder, articles that have been removed were the Special Education Stabilization Fund, the hazardous tree removal, and the Fire Department communications equipment replacement. And all of those had been proposed as free cash articles. And then this is just showing how much of our free cash we anticipate using, so a little bit higher percentage than we used last year. And this, again, is our comprehensive fiscal management policy as it relates to free cash. We are actually right at the 7.5% for free cash, at that goal, and then also just under the 5% for stabilization. And that's assuming that everything is approved at town meeting. And then this is just reminding everyone that we are using $450,000 of free cash to lower the tax rate, which brings our average single family estimated increase to that 737. Otherwise, it would be 792. So that portion of the presentation is all of the adjustments that we've made, inclusive of the health insurance. So I don't know if you want to ask questions now or if you want me to go into the proposed reductions.
Sean, you had a question. Do you want to?
Oh, on the page where you list the free cash articles, should we mention that it is the community center rooftops unit article has an offset that I'm assuming would then go to the rebate would then go to cash?
Yeah, I can add that note, but you're correct. This reflects the total cost and not the incentives.
Good point.
That would just be revenue into the general fund.
Right.
In essence, be free cash the next year.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Shelby? No questions. Okay.
I should also note that Article 18, that's the survey and appraisal work. We did receive a quote now, so we're requesting $25,000 for the survey and appraisal work. So that was another article that the board had not yet voted on. Also, the finance committee was waiting for an amount, so our request is $25,000.
That is for the
And
dual.
Christy, does that include, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shelby, sorry.
No, does that include sort of the multiple, considering carving up the property, keeping the fields versus the whole property?
It does, yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
thank you.
Thanks, Shelby. Same question I had.
So this is the proposed, the budget reduction. So if we look at the total general fund budget, as of the budget summit, it was just over 133 million. We removed the debt budget. This is consistent with how it was laid out by the chair of the finance committee, leaving the remaining budget to be 120 million. 1% is that 1.2 million, and 25% of that is what the town was asked to reduce, which is just over 300,000. Again, the health insurance savings was just over 225,000. So the town sort of took credit for 25% of that, and then the school gets 75% of that, so that reduces the amount that we were asked to reduce to the numbers that you see here. So getting into the reductions. So our first, and I'm going in order of amount. The first is eliminating the youth and family services overtime line. So we have $1,000 in overtime. It's typically used to staff the annual holiday store. Impact of that would be the removal of overtime would require more support from our community partners to staff the store. And so that equals about 30 hours of work time. We're also removing in the public works budget, $2,000 for the Harvey building maintenance. As the board is aware, we have designated that building for use by the Metro West Regional Emergency Communication Center. We have not finalized a lease, which is why it was still in the budget, but we expect to. So in anticipation of that lease getting signed, we'd be removing that $2,000. If for some reason we continue to be responsible for that building prior to the lease being signed, we would potentially need to seek a reserve fund transfer from the finance committee. We're removing funding for the Council on Aging Board Secretary. That position has been vacant for several months. We would look to be utilizing a full-time employee to take minutes for the council as the council meets during the day, which could result in reduced phone or counter coverage during those meetings. And that represents 120 hours of service. In the recreation department, as you know, we added this year additional program coordinator for the community center. That position was only funded at 6 months for fiscal 25. And so it was fully funded in the current budget. We are proposing that a quarter of that salary be paid through the recreation revolving account. Use of these funds would reduce the use of funds. They have a cap on how much they're allowed to spend, so it would reduce by that amount. understanding that the hope is that the program coordinator will create additional programs, so additional funding. In the Council on Aging, we're proposing to remove the substitute mini bus driver funding. We do have 3 19-hour-a-week bus drivers, so that funding does remain. We also have a line item for an additional 100 hours in case there's an additional need for driving the minibus. As this is a substitute, and these are all hourly employees, if a part-time employee is unable to cover a shift or an hour, the substitute would come in and they would be paid those funds. So my understanding would be that this money was maybe used for any additional needs outside of those hours. As the board is aware, we're currently working with the WRTA to understand how they might supplement the program. Typically, we would wait to figure that out before we came forward with a decrease in the budget. But this is one of the cuts that we're proposing, which is about 900, just under 1,000 hours of bus driving service. In the library, we have a full-time custodian. I know this was raised at the budget summit. The library is open about 60 hours per week. We're proposing to reduce the hours of the custodian from 40 to 25 hours per week. If the library moves into if the library project is approved and they move into temporary space, they would certainly continue to do that work. We do anticipate the need for a full-time custodian, especially when they're in their own building. Given sort of the state of the current library, if the project doesn't move forward, then this will be even more problematic to have a reduced hours of the custodian. And just in general, it would require us to be more reactive rather than doing preventative work. In the finance department, we have a part-time administrative assistant that staffs the counter at the treasurer collector's window. They're also responsible for receiving and posting payments, providing customer service over the phone, and again at the counter. Without this position, we would likely reduce the public hours that office is open. We certainly have seen a shift of folks coming into the office to paying bills online since COVID, but we would reduce those hours that this is fully available. So this is a 25-hour-a-week position that would be completely eliminated. So that's about 1,300 hours. In the community development department, we're proposing to reduce the hours of the plumbing and gas inspector to 40 hours per week from 40 hours per week to 25 hours per week. The reduction in the hours is consistent with other inspector positions, but will result in a reduction of approximately 1 day a week available for folks to schedule inspections of plumbing and gas. In our office, in the town manager's office, we have a management analyst and communications assistant. That previously, as you're aware, was an administrative assistant position. So we have, at least for the last 15 to 20 years, had 2 administrative assistant level positions in our office to cover the counter and answer questions, responsible for support of insurance programs, workers' comp, insured on duty, any other liability, as well as all of our licensing, taking minutes for this board. When one of the administrative assistants retired, we did change that position, same pay, but to a management analyst / communications assistant, which really improved our ability to communicate out to the public. That position actually was very specifically responsible for implementation of our new website, and also brought on the town manager newsletter, as well as staff the Civic Leadership Academy in addition to other work. That position was vacated in the summer. We've been holding it open in anticipation of these cuts. So we're proposing to reduce it from the 40-hour-a-week position to 15 hours a week, which would likely result in more of an internship type position. So it's unclear. We have not put out a town manager newsletter since the former employee vacated the position. It's unclear whether or not we would be able to support the Civic Leadership Academy for this fall. In the health department, we have an administrative assistant. That position has also been vacant for a period of time. We were actually about to make an offer when we were asked to to make these cuts. So instead of that, we have held it open. What we're proposing is that the administrative assistant in the planning office would split their time between planning and the health department. It will result in the reduction of public hours for the health department because we would only have 20 hours available for administrative assistant time, and the rest of the employees in the health department are inspectors, so they're often out of the office. And that person was responsible for the pay-as-you-throw, senior citizen pay-as-you-throw subsidized program, the sale of transfer station permits, as well as other processing of bills and overseeing the Sharps collection program. We chose the planning department to split the time because there are the planning department administrative assistant sits with the community development administrative assistant. So we would, even though we would be reducing their coverage from 80 to 60 hours, we know that there would at least be one employee available to answer questions. There's also our 19-hour community development assistant that we've recently hired to support the Historic Commission, ZBA, and CPC, who may be available. And then our sustainability coordinator also has some administrative requirements within their job description, who could also potentially help cover that. But the planning department administrative assistant currently supports 4 boards and committees, and with the Board of Health would support 5. So those are all of the cuts that we put forward, and that gets us exactly to that $301,000 that we were asked to reduce by. So this chart here shows what the tax impact of each of those cuts is, as well as the reduction in hours, so the reduction in service hours is about 142 a week on average. And then if these were to be implemented, that would change our increase to a 3.15%, understanding that these numbers are not inclusive of the non-union pay adjustment that you just approved. And then this chart here also reflects the decrease that was, the reduction that was voted on by the school committee. So the school committee did reduce their budget by $398,000, which is shown here. And then the fixed costs and Worcester Regional and Assabet are the same as what you saw before, so already adjusted based on other factors. So this is just showing here what those reductions would do in terms of our increase for salary and wages and expenses. And then that would reduce the average single family tax bill. So the reductions that I just put forward, as well as the reduction of the school budget, would decrease it from 737 to 659. And then this is the excess levy capacity. So it would increase our excess levy capacity. We would still be using some of that capacity. And it would be at about 12.5 million. And I think, yeah, that's my last slide.
Thank you, Christy. This time, I think what I'd like to suggest is if you can go back to the slide that has the list of all the reductions. Yeah, that one. What I'd like to suggest is a process, but I'm certainly open for opinions here, is I have to recuse myself on that first line item. Barring that, I want to get a sense of the board. Do we want to have discussions about each one of these or them as a whole? We can go down and read through them and say question like we do on a normal process. And then see where we land. And if there's no questions, we can vote them on as a whole. Then we'll come back and we'll look at the entire budget as Christy has provided the sheet on the dais for us.
Can I just add,
Sure.
Several of these items affect union positions, specifically the library custodian, the community development, plumbing and gas inspector, and the health department and planning department administrative assistants. And so just as a note, the town would have to complete its bargaining obligations with the union related to those.
Thank you. Thoughts on the process? Anybody?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for doing this. I mean, it's never easy, but you did what was said. Did have a couple of questions. Can you go back, I think, to the last slide, just so
The excess levy capacity. Oh, this
Nope, go forward towards the end, this one right here. So just so I understand, so the request was that 301,000. We hit that, you hit that. The schools, which was broken out 75-25, basically came in just north of what we did on the town side. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's disappointing in my side. This is and I'll say I'm going now. I'm going to support the cuts we had there. We asked for it. It's difficult, but I think the town wants that. I wish the school committee would think differently. I am just frustrated that that is by far the biggest expenditure. People will tell me that, you know, I'm wrong to go after the schools. It's the only reason people are in town here, but I would fight against that. It's an important piece of our town, absolutely. They do a great job, absolutely. But people want reductions. We're showing here this impacts people, but this is a much smaller budget that we've gone through. I appreciate the work you've done. I appreciate these people that we're impacting here. But I think we told the town that we're going to look to do this, and we're doing it. Again, I just voiced my disappointment with the school committee because they don't seem to listen to what the town is saying, is that we need to cut taxes. And I think they think that we are two different towns. We're not two different towns. Apologize for getting emotional. We're one town, but I feel like, you know, we're the ones taking the impact here. We don't have, if folks know, we have no control over the school committee. We shouldn't. That is state law. But we're one town. We all pay the same tax bill. I'm just frustrated where it is. I apologize for those impacts that are on the town side, but I am going to vote for this. It's what we asked you to do. I appreciate you doing that. I want to stand by what we asked for. I just wish everyone would.
Okay. Other comments and questions in general on the presentation? Shelley?
Yeah, thank you. So a little bit granular before I go big picture here. Christy, can you go to the positions, please?
These slides?
Yes. Yeah, we can kind of go in. Yes. So if you could go to the one, just go up to the first one I want to talk about is the Council on Aging busing. Thank you. So I guess I just want to understand this. So the Council on Aging, this is what I heard you say, was the Council on Aging sort of has a reserve budgeted line item for potential additional hours that may be needed, up to 100 hours.
Yes.
Okay, and 100 hours in a week or across
for the
what period?
for the year. So they have
For the year,
so
okay.
we budget for 3 part-time minibus drivers. So each of them is budgeted for 19 hours per week. And then we also budget for an additional 100 hours of transportation time. And then there's one additional line item that's for substitute driving. And this cut only eliminates that third one, which is the substitute driving.
And that's the 992 hours. So we remain with 3 at 19 plus the 100 hours, call it kind of flex week.
Yes. Yep.
So that's in 60 hours a week, roughly.
Right.
57 hours a week.
Yep.
We covered today.
Yeah. Thank you.
100.
Thanks for the math.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, that answers that question. Can we go to the library? Oh, you're on the library custodian.
Yep.
Okay. So I know I had raised this question during the budget summit. I guess I just want to process through this. So the current library is open 60 hours a week. I'm going to presume if we have a, if the library vote passes, it's going to remain open 60 hours a week. I'm just going to make that assumption that there wouldn't be a reduction in hours just because we're changing locations. I also understand they're in a building where we already have custodial staff. So there may be some extra supports there, even though it's a very large building, because we've already hired staff, as has been discussed previously. I guess my concern is, Christy, to your point, if for some reason the library repair project does not pass and we vote to approve this as presented, now we'd be making a decision to provide 25 hours of custodian support in a failing building, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any extra capacity beyond this custodian in the library to support the library's needs anywhere between, hours 26 and 40 based from other staff?
So the currently this position exists within the library budget. Within the public works budget, there are 3 full-time custodians and a fleet and facilities manager who supervises them. I don't think that we should expect that they would fully cover the additional 15 hours a week to the point where it would not be noticeable that this position was reduced. Yeah. Certainly, we would work together with the library to meet their needs. But I think the line in here where we talk about being reactive versus preventative, is going to come into play because we don't have the full-time custodian that we've always had at the library.
Is there a way to make our vote on this contingent upon the library repair project passing? I know that sounds like a ridiculous question, but
no, I don't think that there is. But I mean, you could right now, but the library project article comes after the budget article. I do think certainly have opportunity in October to restore any of these cuts.
Right.
That's going to be part of my.
Thank you.
So if you don't mind, just follow on.
Yeah, please.
Sure. With the question, I guess that was part of my thinking is we could do it in October, but you start the year. I guess the question is, we're reducing the budget by $23,000 here. What we're saying is we're reducing custodian hours. My question is, could this be something, if we're going back to October, that I'm not asking a question, could we basically, if it doesn't go through, say, no, work the 40 hours, and we're going, we'll spend more of the budget than we would have at 25 hours up through October, hoping that we get funded in October. If not, potentially it's something that we could look to the Finance Committee Reserve Fund or something like that or maybe do that ahead of time. I'm just
thinking
of trade away. It's not like we're basically saying it's hard, no, 40 to 25, we're changing the scale, whatever, we're just saying we're reducing hours right now.
Yeah, so the town meeting votes the salary and wages, so certainly that money can be moved around. And I suppose we could fund this position at 40 hours at the risk of understanding that if the increase isn't approved or the restoration doesn't happen in October, that they would actually need to work fewer hours per week for the rest of the fiscal year. The other piece of this is that it's a union position, so we need to be really clear about what our intention is.
Other questions, comments? Shelby, go ahead.
Yeah, can I?
Yeah.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead, Shelby. I'll just remind the board that we are under a time constraint here, so we're trying to do our best as possible to get done by 7 o'clock. So keep that in mind. Go ahead, Shelby.
Okay. Can you go to I think it was the last slide where you're showing the school and the town cuts?
That one?
No. I thought that was a different slide. It was.
Is it, this one shows?
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So,
So, before, I don't know
Go ahead.
what you're going to say, but I guess I should just add that the school committee voted to reduce the budget by $398,000. And additional amounts that are sort of attributable under what the finance committee asked for to the school would be the 75% of the health insurance savings, as well as the $30,000 savings that we received as a result of the assessment being lower than we had estimated. So they're about
schools got credit for that.
they're about 2/3% reduction with all of those.
So that's added into the three
Yes.
that you talked about.
Right. So the 398 plus the insurance plus the 30,000 in Assabet. So yeah.
So, yes, Chrissy, you're anticipating kind of where it was going. I do think that we need some clarity around the kind of how the final numbers sorted out and who got credit for what. I disagree with the finance committee's allocation, if I understand correctly, of giving the schools credit for the reduction that came in from Assabet. That's totally separate. They have nothing to do with that, in my opinion. Is that correct, though, that they are sort of getting credit on their reduction from that?
Yes.
Okay, so I think that needs to be clearly identified. I won't pile on here too much, but I do want to support Ian's comments while fully recognizing, look, you know, we have amazing schools, and that's made up of amazing human beings who do great things with our kids and people's grandkids, and so, and there's deep appreciation. But I do think that while I appreciate what the superintendent brought forward, I do think the school committee is a bit tone deaf to what the community is asking for. And I said all along, I think I've said it publicly, I know I've said it one-on-one to folks, that I would not support a cut in the town budget that was not the proportional cut represented on the school budget. However, I do think that some reductions, and I deeply appreciate, Christy, the work that you and your team have done, and I know it doesn't come without pain. It's painful to be watching this whole thing or be part of it. I will support what's being presented, again, reflecting what Ian said, because it's what we asked you to do. And we are seeing a, reduction, albeit not what we asked for on the school side, what we had hoped for, I should say. I hope the school committee is watching this or will watch it. I guess we'll see how town meeting, votes, but it does not set us up as a town, capital T. I'm always saying that, as successful, looking at kind of the taxpayer dollars as a whole, not parsed out. So appreciate the work. It is still and left with a bit of disappointment. So thanks.
Thank you, Shelby. Alan.
Really quickly, I do want to acknowledge for folks who didn't watch the school committee meeting that the superintendent did put forth 2 tiers of proposed reductions, one at the
1%,
0.5%, and one at the full 1%. The school committee did have a concern that in tier 1, part of that reduction was actually a proposed increase in revenue related to early childhood, and I shared the school committee members who spoke about that. I would share their concern that if it didn't materialize, that would create a deficit in the planning. And somewhat supporting what Shelby and Ian have said, I would have preferred the school committee move forward with tier 2 in removing that $150, I believe it was $150, or was it $180,000? I think it was $150,000 around the early childhood increased revenue rather than the tier one, the lesser amount, and removing it. I think that would have been more aligned with the community expectations, realizing that both cuts are a reduction in service that are not insignificant. So that's.
Thank you, Ian. Alan. Sean, did you have any comments?
Just want to say, Christy, thank you and your team for putting all this together. I do look at these. I know that I'm sure the management analyst, communication assistant was, we've all benefited from that position over the past couple of years. And, you have a small office, and to decrease that position significantly, we will directly see a difference in service. But I appreciate you, considering all possible alternatives here. And as this was asked of us, I support it as delivered.
Yeah, I without repeating, I'll echo the board on many comments, but I will just say that I've heard loud and clear over the last several weeks, I'll say my 4 years on the board, that we need to do something to get taxes under control. Unfortunately, this is, the measure that we have to take to do that. It's unfortunate. These are really critical positions and services within our town. You can take things as simple as having somebody at a front desk to receive a resident and answer their questions. That's a pretty critical thing. Council on Aging busing reduction is unfortunate. The elderly in our community are the largest population in our community now. So we need to provide better services and more services to them. So this is unfortunately going in a bit of a backwards direction. But I've heard this loud and clear from residents that until we get the spending under control and address our tax issues, they're really pushing on this to happen. So I will thank Christy and team, all of the department heads for working on this. It is not easy, and I appreciate you bringing this message forward for us to consider. So thank you. With that said, I'll just move into, again, my question. We kind of jumped to going through each one of these a bit, specific questions to them. I guess, again, trying to keep time in mind here. Are there any other questions on these reductions as listed on this slide that people would like to dig into with Christy and just open it up as a whole? And if not, or once we've done through the questions, then I'll recuse myself on Youth and Family Services, and then I'll look for a vote on the rest as a group unless otherwise requested by a board member.
Well, so let me ask you this. Do we need to vote on these specific 10, or are we voting on the budget in total? These are just updates to the budget.
I think
you.
Go ahead.
I think you would vote to accept these
changes.
reductions.
Okay.
And then we'd go back and revote. We'd go back and vote on this with these reductions in consideration. We'll go line by line through the budget like we normally do, and we will take into account these items.
Got it.
As voted. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I will hand it over to Ian to discuss Youth and Family Services.
Sure. So the first one on there is Youth and Family Services, a reduction in $1,000. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, roll call. Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Keough, yes.
Johnson, yes. 4-0, one recusal. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Okay, moving on. I'll look to see if there's any questions on these line items below Youth and Family Services one last time. If not, I'll look for a motion on all of those as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Nope. Roll call.
Oh, excuse me, roll call. That's
Marshall,
right. Shelby?
yes.
Marshall, yes?
Marshall, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Keough, yes.
And Welch, yes. Okay. So now moving on to the rest of the budget. Actually, I'd like to go back. Sorry, what? Do we want to go back and vote the articles first? We haven't done that yet. Shelby, we decided to hold off on voting on the articles that had been presented tonight, so that you'd have an opportunity to vote on those as well. So I'll just remind the board of what those are. Article 7, the full budget. Let's hold off on that one until the end. So Article 12G, 12J, 12K through M, 17, 23, and 27 through 32, which are the citizens' petitions. And I can go over those again.
Are those old numbers or the current numbers? That's posted?
I believe those are the current. That's what's in our packet. I can also just go down.
So it's lead service is 12G, the pool 12J.
Yep.
K through M were the school articles we heard.
No, they're 11. Sorry.
It's 11K in it through
It's
M?
11J, 11G, 11K, L, and M.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. 11.
So it's 11G, 11J.
You guys gonna give me just a minute?
I'm sorry, Shelby.
And
What was that?
is the current warrant that you're referencing in the packet? I just want to make sure I'm scrolling to it.
Yes.
Yep.
It should be, yes. Yes, it's right underneath the,
Thank you.
the notes.
Yeah, okay. got
Starts
it.
on page 25.
Page 25, yep.
Thank you. Always
Okay,
challenging
so to be
have one
clear
screen.
again, Article 7 budget, Articles 12G lead service, Article 11G lead service, Article 11J pool, Article 11K through M, school articles, Article 17 senior center subdivision appraisal, Article 23 the ADU, and Articles 27 through 32 citizens petitions. Any questions on any of those, or we can vote on them as a whole?
I'll vote on 27 through 32 separately.
Yes.
Okay. So leave those out. Okay, I'll look for a question on Article 7.
Well, no, I thought we wanted to do the budget last, right?
Yeah, let's say, you're right. It is
Let me
in
get
that.
these done and go back
So
to
Article 11G, lead service. Seeing no question, I'll look for a motion.
Wait, do you want to?
Let's do them as a.
You want to do
as
them as
a
a
group?
Ask if there's any questions besides 27. 27 and 32 has already been questioned.
Okay.
I
So
guess
any-
can we ask for if there's any on the other articles?
Any other questions on Articles 11G, 11J, 11K through M, 17, and 23? Seeing none.
I move we vote in support of Articles 11G, 11J, 11K through M, Article 17, and Article 23.
Second.
Any further discussion? Again, seeing none, although, roll call vote, Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Keough, yes.
And Welch, yes. Now moving on to citizens petitions, Articles 27 through 32. Any questions on those articles? Seeing none, I'll look for a
How long
motion.
do you have? I'm kidding.
I'm sorry, Shelby, did you say something?
I was being funny.
Okay. Articles 27 through 32, can I, go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
I mean, just a question. Article 27, I appreciate Mr. Savoy coming through. I think it's something to talk about. I'm not supportive of this because I think there's a lot of questions around it. I'd like to have it be more discussions. I think, again, it's non-binding. Again, it's work we need to do to figure out, again, how we control it. I'm not sure this is the right answer. I think more work has to be done. So, again, I can include it all in because my motion would be to not support these articles, but I wanted to call that one out as different in my view than the others.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate Mr. Savoy coming before us tonight and talking about that article. It's a very complex topic. There's a lot to be discussed there, as Alan eloquently kind of threw out some ideas and concepts and whatnot. So with that said, do you want to make a motion on those?
I would move that
Yeah,
article.
could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Sorry. Could we, I would like to vote 27 on its own and vote the others.
Okay. So would you like to make the motion
support,
on Article 27?
Yeah, so I would vote to defeat Article 27.
Or not support?
Not support, sorry.
Not support Article 27, okay.
Second.
Any further discussion on Article 27? Seeing none, roll
Other than
call.
to echo sorry, other than just to echo the thanks, I didn't hear the presentation, but I appreciate Mr. Savoy's continued contributions to find ways to be more efficient. See.
Agreed.
So seeing no further discussion, Shelby, roll call vote.
Marshall, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Keo, yes.
Welch, yes. Moving on to Articles 28 through 32.
I vote to not support Articles 28 through 32.
You move to.
Second.
Yeah, I move it. I move it and then I vote.
You wanted to do it all in one shot, huh?
Second.
All right, second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Shelby.
Marshall, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Keo, yes.
And Welch, yes. Okay, so that takes care of all the articles other than the budget, so Article 7. So we'll now go through, unless there's an opinion otherwise.
Well, I think I said, I'm just looking at time too, and I think ask the board whether we just folks call out if they have questions on any of them, or.
Yeah, instead of me reading through, that's a great idea. Just, are there any questions on specific line items on, and I'm not sure, did Shelby get a copy of this?
Yes, in the packet.
It's in the packet. So Shelby, we have in our hands, I just want to, I don't know what page it is in the packet. Let me pull it up.
I emailed it to her too.
Okay.
So.
Hopefully you got it in an email separately. No, I don't see it.
She got it via email then.
Okay. So Shelby, it's just, it's a list of all the departments' names. It's the, it's what you've seen in the budget in the past. It's the spreadsheet that has every salary and wages expenses for every department. Do you have that?
Basically looks like the budget book.
Like the budget, yeah.
Yeah, with lots of PDFs attached.
Yep, it's the first one.
Okay, thank you. Yep, sorry, thank you. Yes, I've got a lot of emails today. Yep.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Ian's advice. I'd like to just take 30 seconds here, or as much time as board members would like, go down this and tell me if there's any questions on any of these. I'm not going to read them out, but just let me know if there's any questions on any of them, and we'll dive down into them if we need to.
You go page at a time?
Well, we're not going to vote on a page at a time. Your suggestion was voting them as a whole,
But right
correct?
now you're asking.
I'm just saying go down and, yeah, if there's any on any page that we would like to have further discussion on.
School department.
School department, okay. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none. Ian, you had a question on school department.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what I said before. I think we're voting on basically budgets, including what we just voted on, reductions on our side, the school's reduction, which was not at the level that was requested, so I'm not supporting. I would vote not to support the school department budget at this level.
Okay.
That's why I'm calling it out, but others can have a different thing, but that.
So we'll vote that one separate?
I'd like to vote it separately.
Okay,
So
we'll
I called
vote
out.
it separate. Okay, seeing, again, no questions on any other line items, I'll look for a motion to approve all budget item,
Support.
or support, excuse me, to support all budget line items except for the school department.
So
Can
moved.
you just add inclusive of the adjustments for the non-union compensation plan as well as the reductions previously voted?
So moved. Whoever
So
said that,
moved.
yeah. And I'll second that.
Okay, again, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Alan?
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Keo, yes.
And Welch, yes. Okay. Now moving on to the last item here, which is school.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. The school budget, as to support for the school budget. Can I get a motion?
I don't know how to do this, whether to do it with a addition, move a recommendation of a
Well-
number that's not our call, so I guess.
Well, do we start with a support of the budget and see how that vote goes, and then
Someone can make a motion.
I move we support the school department budget as updated.
Just based on the numbers that we saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Was there a second?
Oh, yeah, I should ask if there's a second. I see no second.
I think we need to not leave it hanging. We need a vote up or down on that, so I will second that.
Okay.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Alan.
Any further discussion on that motion and second? Okay, seeing none, I'll reverse the order here since Sean made the motion. Sean, roll call vote.
I will vote in favor.
Okay. Ian.
Johnson, no.
Edinburgh, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, no.
And Welch, no. Okay.
Now, I think we need to come up with a number.
I don't think
Why-
so.
Why do we need to do
I
that?
don't think we need to, yeah, I mean, we just either support or don't support.
Do we just leave it at that then?
No.
Yeah.
You can leave it at that and offer, if you want to offer an amendment at town meeting floor, you can. So I don't know that you have to come up with one right now.
Yeah. So I would wait to discuss if we'll make a motion to a later meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I think we can consider a motion, sorry to jump in here. I think we've said it, we've said it over and over again. We've had discussions. I hard enough, honestly, to say no to this. I think that we need to see what the will of town meeting is.
So basically, we have a vote of
3-2, not in support of the school
You should do an
budget.
affirmative vote.
Sorry.
You should do an affirmative vote.
Okay.
Sean's motion failed, so you should take an affirmative vote.
I'll move to not support the school department budget as presented with the amended reduction as explained.
Shelby, will you second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote. Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
Edinburgh, no.
Johnson, yes.
Keo, no.
And Welch, yes.
And again, just to be clear, it's not a number, just reflection of, I don't think that the number that came in was representative of what was asked, and I think what the community deserves.
I would agree with that sentiment. Okay, so we've gotten through. Let's just get
You
through.
could do the minutes of a future meeting
Yeah,
if you
I-
want to just wrap up.
Or just a request to approve the minutes of February 4th and February 11th.
Second.
Keo, yes.
Johnson, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Shelby?
Marshall, yes.
And Welch, yes. Record speed on that one.
Move to adjourn.
We have executive session?
Yeah, just for collective bargaining.
Okay.
Okay.
And we'll do the other ones, you will post your
Managers.
Yeah, I'll
update.
post it. Yep.
Update?
We'll
Okay.
hold our other ones to our next meeting.
Yep.
for us.
Okay, so
So,
I'll look for you.
yep,
Our next meeting is Tuesday morning.
Yep.
8 o'clock.
8 a.m.
If we can please have
Remotely.
issues and correspondence on that agenda.
We can add it.
We can add, thank you. I'll be brief.
I heard that all the news stations are coming in from Boston. I will move that we enter into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with all unions if the chair determines that an open meeting would have a detrimental impact on the board's position.
And I declare that an open meeting would have a detrimental impact on the board's negotiating position, and we will not be reconvening an open meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, yes. Roll call vote, Shelby?
Maxwell, yes.
Edinburgh, yes?
Johnson, yes.
Keo, yes.
And Welch, yes. Thank you again very much to Westborough TV. Everyone have a great night.